Hey, everybody. It's 6 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on this 19th day of September, and it's a Tuesday. And we got a lot of stuff to share with you here on the drive. Yeah, it's just, you get to wherever it is you're going or just settle back in your chair if you're listening online, and we'll bring you news and information that you can use. And I want to start with, a 2024 update. Ooh, what was that? That was not at all what I wanted to happen there.
Fat fingers.
Woo. Wow, fat fingers on the buttons. All right, that was not an auspicious start, was it? Here we go. Look, I think it's interesting what's going on right now. As I mentioned before in the Matt chat, we've got a situation in American politics right now where I think Republicans have pretty much made up their mind who they would like to nominate. I mean, if you look at the numbers, Donald Trump is garnering somewhere between, 50 and 60% of the vote and on the Republican side of the equation. I mean, he's way, 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 way ahead of Ron DeSantis and the rest of the pack. And so what I see when I read that is, Republicans are enthusiastic, many of them, about Donald Trump as their candidate, and they are anxious and they're engaged and they're excited and they're involved, even though it's still early. I mean, they are up for this. If you compare and contrast that with what the Democrats have right now, oh, sure. I mean, they talk a good game about how they will support Donald Trump, but really that support is about a mile wide and an inch deep, and it's not really all that solid. And so what I've been noting here lately is, what the Democrats are saying to themselves, and, in their little internal conversations. We don't often, as conservatives, look over very often to see what the Democrats are saying to each other. But at moments like this, it can be very instructive and will give us some sense of where they are. And what I read is a great deal of anxiety and a great deal of hand-wringing and wailing and gnashing of teeth, and very, very concerned. Not at all as enthusiastic about their candidate as the Republicans seem to be about the guy who is garnering the most support right now. So let me, because I don't want you to have to read the Washington Post. I'll do that for you. But there's a really great article. And remember, when we do a segment like this, we are eavesdropping. We are eavesdropping on the Democrats as they talk among themselves. So, I want you to understand, that when you read this stuff, sometimes, they say something positive about Democrats. I don't want you to think that's me speaking. We're listening in, okay? So here we go. From the Washington Post. I read it so you don't have to. Anxiety ripples through the Democrat Party over Biden. I'm going to skip down a little bit because, they do a lot of setup, but let's get down to the meat of this article. Interviews with more than 30 lawmakers, strategists, activists, and other Democrats show that uncertainty persists on the Democrat side of the equation. Many Democrats express steadfast support for the president's running for a second term, and no major figure has risen to challenge him in a primary. Several party leaders predicted that even voters who voice ambivalence about Biden would be ultimately animated to vote against the Republican choice, especially if that choice is Trump. But, and this is where the anxiety and the hand-wringing begins. But few offered confident assessments that Biden's stubbornly low approval ratings would rebound before next year, and many conceded that one of the president's most significant challenges is one he has no control over: his age. Supporters and critics alike suggest that Biden's prospects may hinge on whether he can find a way to overcome a persistent and growing feeling in the electorate that his advanced age is his defining characteristic. An Associated Press poll found that 77% of Americans, including 69% of Democrats, thought Biden was too old to be effective for another 4-year term, When asked what word came to mind when they thought of Biden, more than a quarter of respondents mentioned age. Another 15% used words like slow or confused. Other polls are also flashing warning signs for Democrats. A CNN survey found that Biden's approval rating was mired at 39%, with nearly three-quarters of respondents saying they were concerned about his age. The poll also found that most Democrats want the party to nominate a different presidential candidate. Polling has also suggested that Biden's support among non-white voters is slipping, that a growing number of voters prefer age limits for public service, and that Americans continue to feel unease about the economy. Skipping a little forward in the article, even some Democrats who fully back Biden's reelection do not always discuss his bid in inspirational terms. Senator Richard Blumenthal compared concerns about the president's age to a broken leg he himself sustained after being knocked down at a parade. I'm concerned about polls, certainly. I'm not dismissive, but I guess I'd compare it to I just had a broken leg. Was I concerned? Yeah. I was really concerned about having a broken leg. I had to take care of it, and now, the 77-year-old said as he began to jog in place, I'm at full strength. At the same time, Biden's age, I don't understand that comparison at all, that allegory. At the same time, Biden's age has put an even more glaring spotlight on Harris, who would be a leading contender should Biden step aside and would replace him if he cannot complete a second term. One Democrat lawmaker speaking on condition of anonymity to discuss this sensitive matter. I just love the way they're all hiding behind anonymity because they don't want to actually be quoted on this, but this is the way they get it out there that they're concerned. The whisper campaign, it's all anonymous. One Democrat lawmaker speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss a sensitive matter raised the prospect that Biden could secure the nomination, then have to drop out for health reasons. The worst case scenario is that we get past the nominating process with President Biden as the nominee, and then he's no longer able to continue as the nominee. That is the nightmare scenario for Democrats. Do you get the sense that they are they are really concerned? Oh, they're talking a good game. Oh, yeah, we'll support him. Yeah, if he can say, we'll be there for him. But what you read, if you read between the lines here, as we eavesdrop on Democrats talking to Democrats, is they're very worried. We don't have this problem on our side of the equation, but they certainly have this problem on their side of the equation. Here's another article, and this is a guy that I have a great deal of respect for. Yes, he's a Democrat pollster. I know him pretty well. Back in the days when I was covering politics for Fox, I sat on a set many, many days with Doug Schoen. And what I love about Doug is, yes, he's a Democrat, but he is always willing to tell you what the numbers show you. He won't pull your punch. And I've always admired that about him. So we're listening again to an editorial written by Doug Schoen. Just 2 months ago, the conventional wisdom was that Hunter Biden would receive a plea deal from the Justice Department that would have wiped away the tax and gun charges he was facing and end federal investigations into the first son. This most likely meant that there would be no additional charges against Hunter, allowing the story and the bad press to fade away before the presidential election year. But now, writes Doug Schoen, that has all changed. With the breakdown of the plea bargain and the appointment of David Weiss as special counsel, Hunter Biden has now been indicted on 3 federal gun charges, and more indictments could be on the way. To the detriment of President Biden, this may create an equivalency in voters' minds between the alleged criminal behavior of Biden's son and the things that they read about Donald Trump. At the very least, it will guarantee that a major issue of the 2024 campaign will be questions of corruptions and ethics. The public's trust in government is severely low. Nearly 6 in 10, 58% of American voters feel our system of government does not work. Beyond the increasingly serious legal issues facing Joe and Hunter Biden this week, the publication of a column by Washington Post writer David Ignatius. We shared that with you. And Ignatius, that was a turning point, one of the first times that somebody came out and said the things that everybody else is thinking, that really Joe Biden should not run for re-election. To be sure, the Ignatius column is more than an isolated event or article. It effectively provides permission for Democrat Party elites to begin the process of questioning Joe Biden's candidacy that began a month or so ago when his poll numbers started to weaken. So, again, he's saying, look, Hunter Biden's got problems. This is going to be in the news. In fact, the headline here really tells it all. An indictment filed, an impeachment begun, and Ignatius defects. Headwinds abound for Joe Biden. Do you hear what's happening here? What's happening is that the Democrats are very, very, very worried about Joe Biden, and they are very worried about, the other part of that ticket, Kamala Harris. I mean, here's their problem. If you elect Joe Biden, you have to consider the possibility that he will not be able to fulfill his second term. And then you'd be stuck with Kamala Harris. Many people on the Democrat side of the equation would feel more comfortable voting for Joe Biden if they had a really good running mate. But Kamala Harris is not that, although Gavin Newsom is putting on a face. Here, you're going to love this. Here's Gavin Newsom being asked by CNN's Dana Bash about Kamala.
You and Vice President Kamala Harris go way back.
Yep.
You say that you came up together in San Francisco, knew each other.
Before we were in politics.
Before you were in politics. I'm sure you saw that former Speaker Emerita, Nancy Pelosi, she heaped praise on Kamala Harris, but she declined to say whether or not she thought that the Vice President is the best person to be on the ticket with Joe Biden in 2024. Do you?
Of course she is. Biden-Harris administration. Masterclass in terms of performance. Bipartisan deals on infrastructure, bipartisan deals on guns and debt ceiling, on the CHIPS and
So
Science
she's
Act.
the best choice.
I mean, by definition, if I think this administration the last 2.5 years has been one of the most outstanding administrations in the last few decades, and she's a member of that administration, she gets to lay and claim credit to a lot of that success. The answer is absolutely.
Well, listen, I the way I read that, sorry, that little burp at the end, I don't know what that was. Let's make sure we get rid of that. Yeah, what I hear in Gavin Newsom is, here's a guy who's, I'm going to pretend to be loyal here. I'm not going to actually, tell you how I feel. Every Democrat is really worried right now about what might happen as this campaign goes along. But he's going to talk a good game, and he's going to sound supportive until they come to him and beg him to enter the fray against Joe Biden, or, I don't know. But it seems like to me he's keeping his powder dry and saying nice things, so he is not seen as being disloyal. But I don't think he believes anything he just said there, in my personal opinion. As we're talking about 2024, I brought you this story yesterday, and I think we need to really pay attention to it, because it really could change the whole complexion of the upcoming election. Shock poll: nearly 40% of voters would back a third-party candidate in a Biden-Trump rematch. If Biden and Trump end up being the Republican and Democrat nominee, respectively, then and a third-party candidate came along that was a viable candidate, about 40% of voters across the spectrum, some Republicans, a few Republicans, a lot of, I think, independents, and more than a few Democrats would be willing to vote. Now, remember, the number that the poll shows is that 38% would back a third-party candidate. And you say, well, that's not much. Yeah, it is in a three-way race. 38% wins. And we don't have a third-party candidate officially in the race yet, but it's early. And the No Labels Party has been talking, with Joe Manchin, who has no future in West Virginia politics, but might have a future as a candidate for the presidency as an independent on the No Party's platform. 42% of Democrats, 35% of Republicans, 37% of voters not affiliated with either party are at least somewhat likely to vote for a third-party candidate. If that happens, we have to stop and rethink everything. There are enough people out there in this country right now who don't follow politics like you and I do, who will look at this situation and say, you know what? A pox on both their houses. I want something new and different. And if there's a viable third-party candidate, I think in this election cycle, that candidate could do quite well. 21 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Let me tell you all about Everseal, and if you don't know what Everseal is, well, it's a sealant for your exterior wood and concrete. It's actually been around for a very long time and was used in industrial applications for many, many years. And then the folks at Everseal figured out how to provide this permanent solution for sealing your exterior wood and concrete at a price that home and business owners can actually afford. Now, here's what will happen. They will come out to your house and they will start with a deep cleaning to make sure your wood and concrete looks as new as it possibly can look. And then they will apply the patented sealant, which absorbs all the way through the wood and the concrete. Not just lay on top of it, it permeates in a big way to become a permanent part of your wood and concrete, and it will prevent any further deterioration for the next 30 to 50 years. Wow. Think about how much money you would save if you didn't have to go do this kind of stuff every year. If this sounds like something you'd like to explore, why don't you reach out to Steve Nelson and the team over at Everseal? Here's how you do that. Call this number, 844-EVER-USA. That's 844-EVER-USA, or you can learn more by going to their website, ever-seal.com.
Negotiations continue between the United Auto Workers Union and the big three U.S. automakers. We hear what's going on between the Biden administration when it comes to the UAW strike. Plus, Williamson County School Board heard some arguments against and for pride flags inside the classroom. 3:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 27 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. There's Mac Morey there in the newsroom. Hello, Mac. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
And we got Chris Weber in the control room, pushing all of the blinky buttons and ably handling of the duties that make this show run so smoothly. Good afternoon to you, Chris.
Oh, how are you?
How are you? Yesterday we were all talking about that F-35, and they did, late yesterday as we were in the middle of the show, they did apparently locate it. I learned
what was left
word.
of it?
Yeah, there's not much left to it. I actually learned a new word today that I had never. It said aerial footage showed debris in a copse, COPSE, beside the field. And I had to look. And that's a word I have never heard. I thought, it's a stand of trees.
Copse.
So like a small forest?
Yeah, like a small stand of trees along a roadside would be a copse. Yeah,
It's a good one.
the trees had been knocked over, and the field had a large area of blackened, scorched earth. So they did find it. What a humiliating thing for the military to have to say. Hey, sorry to bother you folks, but have you seen a missing F-35? We seem to have lost one, and we don't have any earthly idea where it is. And apparently it crashed in a field only about 80 miles from its base. $80 million stealth fighter. Wow, that's something else. But we don't have any real explanation of what happened here. I mean, other than the pilot ejected, he was with another pilot. I mean, there was another F-35 that returned to base, and there was no problem. But this guy apparently, popped the canopy and ejected from the plane while it was in autopilot mode. And because, it wasn't squawking with the transponder, it was effectively, a stealth aircraft that you can't see on radar. So they had no idea where it went or what happened to it. The pilot is back, but hasn't explained what the mishap was.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's strange that if it was only 80 some odd miles from the base, then it must have either not had much fuel in it, period, or the autopilot wasn't functioning properly, because, 80 miles is nothing for a jet. That's seconds.
Especially a jet that, flies, Mach 1 better.
Gosh.
Yeah, I don't know. What I suspect happened here is that they located it quite a while before they told everybody that they located it.
Okay.
Because they would, the aircraft, the remains of that aircraft. I don't see any remains. I just see a black scorched area.
Yeah.
I think they went out there with a flatbed truck and they picked up all the pieces, because this is a very, very high-tech aircraft, and there are a lot of secrets contained in that wreckage that they didn't want anybody to get a hold of. So that's what I think happened. That's my theory about it. But,
could be right.
Anyway, it has been located. And again, we await a more official explanation as to what was the mishap that caused all this. And I don't know how long it's going to take to get that. Probably released on a Friday at 5 o'clock on a holiday weekend. Yeah.
Yep.
Heavily redacted.
That's right. It's 3:30 now on Super Talk.
Thirty minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Currently 81 degrees, mostly sunny today in Nashville. A lot of the same temperatures and skies the rest of this week. High 70s to mid 80s. Traffic and a weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Negotiations continuing between the United Workers Union and the big three U.S. automakers as thousands of workers continue striking for a fifth day today. According to UAW President Shawn Fain, workers from more plants could walk away from the job if no major progress is made between the two sides by the end of the week. Karen Travers has the latest from the Biden administration.
Two top Biden administration officials who have been keeping the president updated on the talks between the UAW and the automakers are no longer traveling to Detroit. The president announced last week that Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su and Senior Advisor Gene Sperling would go to Detroit to show support for the parties reaching a deal. But now the White House says they will remain in touch with key players from Washington. A White House official said that given ongoing negotiations, it would be, quote, most productive for Su and Sperling to stay in D.C. to allow talks to move forward.
And right now in Middle Tennessee, Fox 17 says that the Williamson County School Board heard arguments from parents against pride flags inside classrooms last night. Parents against the flags said there's no place for them in education, and other parents argued not putting pride flags in schools is just, quote, downright mean. This item was not on the agenda, so no vote was taken on the matter. And a central Pennsylvania county overrun with minks. Dave Packer.
Federal drug agents found a kilogram of fentanyl, enough to kill 500,000 people, stored on top of playmats kids nap on at a daycare in the Bronx. 4 children were overcome, a 1-year-old died, and the other 3 were saved by the opioid overdose medication Narcan. The daycare operator and a man who lived at the location were charged with narcotics possession with intent to distribute, resulting in death. Court records said they kept large quantities of fentanyl and a kilo press at the daycare, despite the daily presence of children, including infants.
And that is the latest news, weather, and traffic next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
So how are your investments faring in this rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand it can be a little scary, but Beacon Capital Management has a plan to make sure that you're on the right track, to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed. Wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Well, Beacon can provide you with that reassurance, and it starts with a simple phone call, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon will ask you for some information, and then they will take it from there. And when you don't have anything to lose except for all the worry that you might have right now. Get started today by calling 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets all your retirement goals. You can replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. Again, that number, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away, and you can learn more by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. 38 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock. I'm Brian Wilson, and this is The Drive. Hey, we're hoping that you're enjoying this beautiful weather that we're having right now. I mean, I'm telling you, this is just, spectacular. It's spectacular. We had a very busy morning here at Stately Wilson Manor because, number one, as I mentioned yesterday, I completely tore up my lawnmower.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to take it over and get it worked on. So I really messed it up.
But it's in good hands now, right?
It's in good hands now,
All right.
and so there's that.
It's out of your hands.
It's out of my hands. So, well, look, I have certain skills, and apparently running a zero-turn lawnmower is not one of them. And then, there is excitement, and I don't know how much of this I want to share because but I'm excited about it. I am also learning a great deal. We're going to have puppies if everything goes well at Stately Wilson Manor right around Christmas because
that's fun.
we are beginning the process. I have learned a tremendous amount about French bulldog animal husbandry in the last few days.
That's is that the right terminology? 'Cause that just sounds bizarre.
Well, Grogu, will have a suitor. And it'll all be done. It'll all be done with a little assistance. Let's put it that way.
Say no more. Please say no more.
We got a big old. I'm just talking about a really good looking male bulldog.
I thought you were going somewhere else.
Didn't know what was going to happen next.
That's right. And all I know is doctors. Basically what I told after this morning. I said to Cabana wife, I said, you're handling this. I'll write the checks and then celebrate the puppies when it's all here.
Yeah, just let me know when the puppies get here.
Yeah, I don't need to know all of the details. That's right. But a really good veterinarian is involved in the process. Let's put it that way. So that's what's going on at our house. I mean, you know what? I mean, I am excited though, honestly, at the prospects of little. I mean, they're the most adorable little dogs you've ever seen when they're puppies.
They are cute. Yes, they are.
I mean,
So
the
cute.
French bulldogs are just adorable, and there'll be adorbs, and we're hoping to have a big old batch of them right around Christmas, and
Fun.
the process starts now.
All right.
All right. Other than that, nothing much happening around my house. Speaking of interesting events, that was a horrible segue. The House will hold. What? Well, no, actually, in many ways, the two might be connected, but I'm not going to go there because I'll get in real trouble.
Ooh.
The House will hold its first Biden impeachment inquiry hearing next Thursday. House Republicans are moving forward with their impeachment inquiry. Remember, it's not impeachment, it's an impeachment inquiry into President Biden, and it will start next Thursday. House Republicans will gather, and it's going to be a dog and pony show, you can be sure. The hearing won't necessarily, according to Fox News, tread on any new ground, but will be a review of the existing evidence and an explanation of the status of the inquiry, according to sources who know it. Biden faces accusations he was involved in a foreign business deal set up by his son, Hunter Biden, who allegedly promised his father would use his public office to grant favors in exchange for payments. Comer, and we're talking about James Comer, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, congressman from Kentucky, and other Republican investigators gave an update to the Speaker of the House last week, and apparently, I think they're holding back on some of the stuff they know. They're not revealing it all just yet, which makes a lot of sense. They are going to seek additional transcribed interviews with Hunter Biden's business associates, Eric Schwerin and Rob Walker, and it's going to be underway. It's going to be on. Comer has also sought information from the National Archives related to the Biden family's alleged misuse of Air Force Two and all unredacted documents in which Biden used pseudonyms. And there are a whole bunch of them we are now finding out. The White House, of course, has denied any wrongdoing, maintains that Biden was never in business with his son. We'll see about that. Here we go. Here's more on it from Breitbart. Oversight Committee intends to subpoena Hunter James Biden's bank records as early as this week. That's right, Hunter and James, the brother of the current president of the United States. A committee spokesperson has told Breitbart they plan to subpoena the Biden since it launched the investigation in November of 2022. It did not issue subpoenas sooner because the committee insisted on practicing restraint to show good faith. We give people plenty of time when you do subpoenas. If you want to win in court, you have to show good faith efforts that you tried to get the information. So we're checking some boxes. Listen, Comer's right about this. Everybody wants this thing to be happening, immediately, but it's a complicated investigation. And Comer is right. If you want to go in and have the courts compel the production of documents and testimony, you have to show good faith. You can't just say, we want it, and then the courts look kindly upon somebody who said, well, we crossed all the T's, we dotted all the I's, we did everything we could, and so he's right about that. But there you have that. I wanted to focus on this a little bit because I think this is really important, given right now that there appears to be a real battle between conservatives, I would say hardline conservatives, Republicans in the House, and some of the more moderate members of the Republican Party in the House, and there are some who come from purple states, about McCarthy. There are some who want McCarthy gone, and there are some who want McCarthy to stay, and McCarthy is walking this tightrope because if you're the Speaker of the House right now and you lose 5 moderate votes, then the Democrats win. If you're the Speaker of the House and you lose 5 conservative votes, well, then the Democrats win. I mean, you can't afford to lose more than 5 votes. That's how tight the margins are. And so McCarthy is like in this situation where he's sort of walking the tightropes between different factions within his own party. The conservative faction has been pounding the table and saying, I want Hunter Biden subpoenaed and brought in and ask a bunch of questions. And Comer and Jim Jordan, who's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee and the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, have all been saying, no, you don't want to rush into that. You don't want to rush into that. And McCarthy has sided with those who say we need to give them a little more time. From the Epoch Times, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and Republican House investigators handling an impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden could subpoena his son Hunter Biden, but are waiting for the right moment to do that. And, he was repeatedly pressed about that in an interview over the weekend. The House Speaker said that a subpoena for him would be forthcoming, but he wouldn't let media pressure, or quite frankly, some within his own party pressure, to dictate the timing. And here is what he said, and listen carefully because I think he's right about this. There's a strategy behind everything. We only follow facts. Hunter Biden will get subpoenaed, but when is it the appropriate time? Do you want it because television wants it, or do you do it around the facts and the timing? He said, and I agree, a premature subpoena of the president's son might create a spectacle for fundraising purposes, but he would rather wait until Republicans have all the evidence that can guide their questioning of the younger Biden. In particular, McCarthy noted recent allegations that President Biden and his son communicated through a number of different aliases and private emails while the elder Biden was serving as vice president. Republican investigators believe that in at least one of these alleged pseudonym email accounts, then Vice President Biden's son, Hunter, was looped in on a phone call that his father had with the Ukrainian president at the time. And this was at a time when Hunter Biden was engaged in business dealings in Ukraine. Republican investigators have raised allegations that President Biden leveraged his influence throughout his political career to benefit his family members in various business dealings. McCarthy said the following: we have about 5,400 emails in which Joe Biden used as vice president under a false name that we have not been able to get our hands on yet. Why would you call Hunter Biden before you had access to some of that information? It doesn't make any sense at all to me. I think you need to wait. I think you need to be careful. There are some who just want what they want when they want it, but I would say that, slow and steady wins the race here. Last month, the Southeastern Legal Foundation filed a lawsuit against the National Archives, alleging that the executive branch agency had identified nearly 5,400 communications pertaining to the pseudonym accounts, but had turned over none of those records. Wouldn't it be smarter, McCarthy said, if you're able to get all of the emails? I would say yes. I would say he's right about that. It looks to me like 9 Biden family members got money. I want to see bank statements. I think they have to come before us and answer questions. So the House Speaker is moving forward with the impeachment effort amid criticism, but I think he needs to be given a little bit of. I think the investigators need to be given a little time to continue their investigation. Look, I know that there is a weariness about this particular story. Because, as I've often said, there is a sort of a maddening drip, 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 a lot of drips to this story. I mean, it comes incrementally. There's one little element today, then there's one little element the next day. And, it's hard to keep up with all those little elements. But what I want you to know is every time there's a drip, it adds. And if you get enough drips, you're going to get a gallon. And then, you've got something. They all add up over time, those little drips. So, I need you to think about being a little patient if you can. What I don't understand is how the Democrats can look at the stuff that's out there so far and say that there is no evidence at all to support the impeachment inquiry. Last week, Senator Rand Paul said he would wait to hear more before deciding where he stands on impeachment. Representative George Santos offered support for the impeachment inquiry, but signaled he doesn't want a rush decision. So we are watching all of that very, very closely. Let it drip for a while. It is maddening, and I know everybody wants to get to the bottom of it, but these things do take time. 51 minutes now past the hour.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I recently did a workshop talking about some of the missteps of the investing industry, some of the biggest mutual fund companies out there. You probably recognize these names: Fidelity, Vanguard, Raymond James, Edward Jones, actually using data and information from their own websites as I walk through this. Now, one of the things I was talking about is diversification and how investors could be in for a rude awakening at the amount of risk that they actually have in their portfolios, and they don't even realize it. Now, the example I like to use to help people understand why do these huge companies do this? I mean, these are big companies. And you go, well, why? Well, think about the diet industry. In the diet industry, you had things like this: fat-free this, fat-free that, fat-free that. And what happened is they did a study. They were looking at diabetes in children. And what they found was that when they went fat-free, they actually ended up with more diabetes rather than less, because what they substituted for fat was sugar. Now, what happens in the mutual fund industry, they tend to keep costs low by investing in very narrow areas of the market that are inexpensive to manage. So what happens is the investor ends up with more risk than they think that they've got. Now, why do they do that? Because you are actually attracted by low costs. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't use these big mutual fund companies. It just means that you have to be eyes wide open. As an investment firm, we help people sidestep these things because sometimes you have no choice. You have a 401k, you're dealing with these fund companies, and you can't go anywhere else. So what we do is we help you go around these landmines. To set up an initial 15-minute phone call, go to our website, paulwinkler.com, or you can just scan the QR code right here. We look forward to talking with you.
House Republicans arguing amongst themselves with government shutdown looming, an active investigation in Tennessee. A TSA agent breaks the rules and gets caught, plus an overflow in Pennsylvania of minks. Those stories and more coming up at 4 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, let's take a look at the markets. They ended the day down. The Dow Jones Industrial down 106, the S&P down about 10, the NASDAQ down about 32, so all major industries are red. Oil is the thing everybody's looking at. Very quickly before we turn to John Maxon, West Texas Intermediate, $91 a barrel. Brent crude coming in at $94 a barrel. But as John Maxon from Beacon Capital Management will tell us, there's a great concern it could go much higher.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's making the Fed's job a whole lot more difficult. They may hold rates tomorrow, but the question is going to be, are they going to be able to lower them at some point in the near future? Are they going to keep them high? And oil, Brian, is going to have a huge role in that. It's up almost 30% from its low in June, and the Fed's trying to reduce inflation and produce a soft landing. But surging oil prices, people remember, caused us to go into recession in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And so the CEO of Chevron came out today and said he expects oil to go over $100 a barrel. And if that happens, that's going to really cut into the consumer. So oil prices are going to be something to really watch in the days ahead.
All right. Thank you, John Maxon. Learn more about all the things they can do for you over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. 59 minutes past the hour.
.401, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 80 degrees in Nashville. Complete weather and traffic report headed your way in 5 minutes. With less than 2 weeks until the government funding deadline, House Republicans struggling to reach a consensus on the stopgap measure put forth by their own members. Im Nguyen has more from Washington.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is running short on time to come up with a plan to keep the federal government from shutting down at the end of the month. He's getting pushback from far-right conservatives, despite saying this morning that his GOP conference had a very good discussion on the matter. Still, if the bill were to pass the House this week, it would still have to gain approval by the Senate, which is not likely without any changes.
Put your ideas up. We are one body. The Senate is another body. If they have a different idea, put their idea up, and then let's go to conference and figure out the differences.
Republican Senate leader Mitch McConnell is urging a two-party solution. He says that he can't predict how it ends, but he says shutdowns have, quote, always been a loser for Republicans. An active investigation in Tennessee, the Clarksville Police Department looking for help from the public in finding a woman they believe was involved in a hotel robbery last week. 22-year-old Miracle Keys has warrants against her after the robbery on September 15th. Her alleged accomplice, 21-year-old Rinja Hill, has already been taken into custody. And a flight attendant grounded after she allegedly tried to bring a loaded gun through a TSA checkpoint. Dave Packer.
A flight attendant arrested at Philadelphia International Airport. The TSA says 23-year-old Kiala Santa Cruz attempted to bring a loaded .380 caliber handgun through a TSA checkpoint. That gun spotted with a scanning machine and found in the woman's purse, says the TSA. She was arrested by Philadelphia police and faces a federal fine for carrying a gun at a checkpoint.
January 6th Capitol riot suspect roundup update. A man who claimed Fox News lied about him, pretending to be a Trump supporter to cause trouble so Trump supporters would be blamed, has been charged with a misdemeanor count of disorderly or disruptive conduct on restricted grounds. Ray X claimed in a lawsuit that Fox News Channel falsely accused him of being a government agent who was trying to start trouble that would be blamed on Trump supporters. And a central Pennsylvania county has been overrun with minks. Dave Packer.
Minks by the thousands coating Pennsylvania's Northumberland County. Game officials believe someone released the animals from a fur farm Sunday. Cages opened, holes cut in fencing. Their fur may be soft, but their teeth are sharp. And the folks from the mink farm advising anyone who sees a mink to stay away. While they try to trap them, the farm advising not to keep pets outside unattended. Smaller animals like cats and kittens could be at particular risk. State police investigating who's responsible for letting the minks loose.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Let's call it 8 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk. I'm Brian Wilson. I'm your friend and radio buddy, and we've got another exciting hour for you. We got Mac Morey in the newsroom and Chris Weber in the control room, and we are loaded for bear, giving you news and information you can use so that you arrive wherever it is you're going as the smartest person in the room. Let's head down to the swamp, why don't we? I'm not afraid to wade into the muck and the guck and the goo and try to explain to you some of the things that happen in that godforsaken. I was just thinking the other day about how glad I am that I am no longer in the swamp and how happy I am to be in Middle Tennessee. I truly, I look back at and I say, man, you ever been in a situation where it's sort of a toxic situation, but you can't see it because you're right in the middle of it?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you ever had one of those things?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I feel about the swamp. I mean, it's such a toxic place, but when you're, that's what happens. People go there and they get involved in all the toxicity that happens in that godforsaken town, and they don't realize what they're into. It was only with the passage of some time and some separation from the swamp that I seem to have some clarity on that, and I'm really glad. I'm tremendously glad. In fact, the idea now of going back to Washington, I sort of get a little PTSD. I don't know. I don't know that I want to go back there.
Gives you the creepy crawlies.
It does. It really does. It really does. All right. Here's our swamp report. Remember January 6th, and there was this guy that everybody caught on video who seemed to be an instigator, and his name was Ray Epps. And everybody said, who is this guy? Who is this guy? And was he like an FBI informant? Was he, who was sent out there to instigate trouble? That's what a lot of people thought. He claimed that was not true, but everybody said, well, then why aren't they charging him with anything? Well, as it turns out, they have now done that. Ray Epps, subject of January 6th conspiracy, charged by the Department of Justice in connection with the Capitol riot. Ray Epps, protester filmed during the January 6th riot at the Capitol, who became the focus of online theories about the government plotting the incident, was charged with misdemeanor disorderly conduct this week. This according to the Washington Examiner. He faces one count of knowingly engaging in disorderly and disruptive conduct with the intent to impede and disrupt the government's planned activity on January 6th, according to a Monday filing. Epps filed a defamation lawsuit against Fox News and former opinion host Tucker Carlson over their portrayal of him, according to a July filing. Monday's charges state that then Vice President Mike Pence was presiding, as you know, over the joint session of Congress, and that Epps' conduct did, in fact, impede and disrupt the orderly conduct of government business and official functions, a U.S. Attorney Matthew Graves wrote in the short two-page filing. One night before the riot, Epps was captured on several camera angles telling a group of pro-Trump supporters that they should go into the Capitol, following former President Donald Trump's speech that took place the next day. A lack of any charges against Epps until now compelled some online conspiracies to percolate that Epps was somehow a federal officer who planned to agitate other protesters. During an interview with the House January 6th committee last year, Epps said he went to Washington to support Trump after he lost the 2020 election, but he noted the conspiracies that followed have significantly disrupted his life. Okay, this is Epps now. I never intended to break the law. It's not in my DNA. I'm sure you've looked up my record. I don't break the law. Theories around Epps have circulated in many circles since the riot. His name was even involved during the trial of Dominic Pizzola, a member of the Proud Boys who was sentenced to 10 years. So, take it with a grain of salt, that this is what it appears to be. But Epps has now been charged, even though it's just a misdemeanor charge. He has been charged with disorderly conduct for his activities on January 6th. The swamp is a horrible place, and it's always been bad. But lately, it seems that if you've been paying attention, It is such a crime-ridden city. It's a dangerous place. The crime is so bad in D.C., writes Just the News, that Congress is now distributing tips to their employees about how to avoid being carjacked in the nation's capital. The District of Columbia currently struggling to contend with a surge in criminal activity that has many questioning the safety of living in the city at all. Compared to this point in 2022, homicides are up 28% and on pace to reach their highest levels in more than 20 years. House Administration Committee Chairman Brian Steele warned would-be visitors to Washington, D.C. of rising crime in the nation's capital and advised people how to respond to criminal action to minimize the risk of being victimized by violence like carjackings. Amid the crime wave, the Mexican consulate in Washington, D.C. has warned the citizens of Mexico, boy, this seems really weird, that the city is experiencing a significant increase in crime in areas previously considered safe. Take precautions. In an emergency, call 911. To limit more aggressive incidents such as carjacking and armed robbery, some suggested leaving space between cars at red lights should one need to flee. Let me tell you something, that's not going to work in Washington, D.C. traffic. Downtown Washington, D.C. traffic is the worst. I once heard somebody who said that, you know why traffic is so bad in Washington, D.C.? And it wasn't a joke, it's true. That about 60% of the people who are on the streets driving around the city of Washington, D.C. are circling to look for a parking place. I mean, it's true. It's true. That's why, they always talk about don't block the box. It's impossible to not box the blocks, block the box. And they have red light cameras there, so you get tickets if you block the box. I mean, you're trying to get across the and then some guy in the middle of the intersection, they'd all stop short, and then you'd find yourself stuck out there. You thought you could get across, but all of a sudden you can't, and then the flash goes off. Ugh. There's a $60 ticket. Ugh. Yeah. In fact, it got so bad. I'm diverting from my original topic. It got so bad when I lived in Washington, toward the last few years that I lived there, that I would not go downtown, because every time I went downtown, I either got a red light camera or a speeding camera ticket. One way or the other. They had speed cameras and red light cameras. And I would get a ticket. And so, I went to say, well, I've been invited to go down to this thing. Is it worthy of going down? Is it downtown worthy? Do I really want to go downtown for this? And 99% of the time I would say no. Toward the end, I would refuse to go downtown if I could avoid it.
Kind of like Lower Broad for me.
Yeah, well, all right. It's so concerning to think that in a city of over 500,000 people, that 5,000 cars have been stolen so far already this year in the nation's capital. Whew. That's just ugly. That's just ugly. Here, this one will hack you off. Again, part of our swamp report. Fauci and his wife, their net worth exceeded $11 million million dollars when he departed his government post, according to recent disclosures. His net worth is up nearly $2 million since before the pandemic. Former National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases Director Anthony Fauci and his wife had a combined net worth of $11 million when they departed their government posts, when he departed his government post. His termination report, which Fox News obtained from an open records request, included his finances through his exit at the end of last year, and the documents show that Fauci and his wife were up nearly $2 million since before the pandemic. How about that? During the pandemic years, the Fauci became decamillionaires with their household net worth exceeding $10 million. And before his retirement, Fauci was the highest paid federal employee. He made $480,654 a year, out earning the president of the United States, who only gets paid $400,000. In retirement, we estimate that Fauci is collecting a federal pension which rivals a president's salary. It's the largest federal retirement package in history. And finally, from our swamp report, buckle up, everybody. This is going to be good. Attorney General Merrick Garland will appear in front of a House Judiciary Committee on Wednesday as the Department of Justice comes under heavy scrutiny for weaponized prosecutions against conservatives and President Donald Trump while Hunter Biden continues to get a pass. In other words, they're going to ask him a lot of questions about the weaponization of government and the two-tiered system of justice that seems to be in place at the Department of Justice and some of the agencies that are associated with the Justice Department, like the FBI, etc. It will be tomorrow, 10 a.m. Oversight of the U.S. Department of Justice will examine how the Justice Department has become politicized and weaponized under the leadership of Attorney General Merrick Garland. Wow, that will be, pop your popcorn, sit down. That's going to be good. I have a feeling that Republicans are going to have a lot of questions to ask. Honestly, anybody who thinks that there's not a two-tiered justice system is simply just not paying attention. There's one system for everybody who has a D behind their name, and there's a whole nother system for those who have an R behind their names. And I'm telling you, I think there are going to be quite a few people on the Republican side of the dais who are going to be loaded for bear for questions for the Attorney General of these United States. That's the problem. He's not the Attorney General of these United States, which is what he's supposed to be. He's the Attorney General of the Biden administration. It's almost like a personal attorney. 20 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock.
A government shutdown grows near, a Biden impeachment inquiry update, and today's money news. Those stories coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 24 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I want to touch base with Mac Morey, who is our expert on all things having to do with sports. And by the way, if you have not yet heard Mac Morey's wide world of sports, you need to be coming back at about 5:25.
Oh yeah,
because today we're going to talk about Deion Sanders and what's going on in Colorado. I mean, wow, something else. But I saw this story. Ex-NFL player Sergio Brown appears to surface in Mexico in there's some kind of bizarre rant that he made on camera after his mom's death has been ruled a suicide back in, where was it? Where did she live? I forget. But she was found dead in a creek behind her home. The former New England Patriots player addressed the news that his mother was found dead near a creek behind her home. And so he does this incredible rant. And I looked at that rant and I saw the video and I said to myself, I know where he is.
Really?
I absolutely know where he was when he did that.
Oh, wow.
Because first thing I said was, he's at a place where I've been. It's a resort called the Bahia Principe, and he's in the lobby of the Bahia Principe, and you hear the music playing in the background, and that's where he is now. Some people say he might be in Mexico City, but I'm telling you, I've been to that resort, and it's a very iconic lobby that has a big thatched roof on it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I said he's at the Bahia Principe, and it wasn't until I read the story that I found out that he's thought to be in Mexico. So
wow, I'm
telling you, that's where he is, or that's where he was.
Wow,
very interesting.
Detective Brian Wilson.
Well, but what do you tell us a little bit about this story? Are you up to speed on this one?
I mean, not really, but I mean, honestly, it looks like he's going. I mean, he's got a lot to say. That's what I know, Brian.
Well,
I mean, you're kind of letting me know about this, honestly.
Yeah, okay. So let me give you the background. Ex-NFL player Sergio Brown, who went missing after his mother was found dead in a creek near her Illinois home, appears to have surfaced in Mexico in a bizarre video posted to Instagram. He was spotted in a bizarre Instagram. In the video, the former New England Patriot player addressed the news that his mother, Myrtle Brown, 73, was found dead near a creek behind her home. Sergio Brown said he thought his mother was on vacation. And then he went on in this weird rambling rant to say that he had been kidnapped by the FBI and the Maywood Police Department on several occasions. Yeah, I mean, he's crazy.
Nuts.
He's cray-cray. There's no doubt about it. But anyway, I thought, that's an interesting story, and I started reading into it, and then I saw the picture, and I said, man, I know exactly where he is.
You're right, though. It is a very, easy to, I mean, if you had been there where he was, you would remember that. Yeah, for sure.
Because it's very distinctive and very unusual.
Yeah, this sounds crazy. He says, fake news. It has to be the FBI that came into my house on Bob Marley's death day with the 511 haze and gas unwarranted. What? They kidnapped me twice from my home. Yeah, whoa. I thought my mama was on vacation. That's fake news. She's retired. And you want to come to me? FBI had to do it. Whoa.
So now are authorities thinking he may have had something to do with his mother's death at this point? That's what I don't understand.
I think that's why they're looking for him. They want to know where he is and what he's up to, and they have a few questions.
Yeah, I think they probably have
Sergio Brown.
Yeah, they probably have a couple things to ask.
Not sure they're going to get any intelligible answers if video is any indication.
I think he found an ample supply of drugs on his visit to Mexico. It would appear,
looks like it,
because he is incoherent almost in the rant. But what a weird story that one is. And again, it caught my attention because I'm telling you, if you've ever been to this particular resort, you walk into an open air lobby, and it's got this big, huge thatched roof on top of it. Yeah. And I mean, when you walk in, it's very impressive. And he's doing this, it would seem to me, in the lobby there of the Bahia Principe. I would bet you, dollars to donuts.
Interesting.
That's where you find the guy. Just saying. You might pass that on to your police contacts. That's where I'd look.
Wow.
It is now 30 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 4:30. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 81 degrees right now and a sunny day on Music Row. We got a full weather forecast. The latest traffic report headed your way in about 5 minutes. This is some breaking news from the BBC. Hunter Biden to plead not guilty to gun charges. The U.S. President Joe Biden's son, will plead not guilty to 3 criminal charges relating to a gun purchase that he made in 2018. Again, that is coming from the BBC. Some other breaking news in from Channel 4. That endangered child alert that's been going out for the missing 1-year-old has now been found safe, and the mother's ex-boyfriend is facing charges. We'll keep you updated with that right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Going over to the nation's capital, there's worry in the U.S. Senate that House Republicans will not make any budget deal in time to avoid a government shutdown. Andy Field has the latest from Washington.
Senate Democrats saying House Speaker McCarthy's losing control of his own party.
What's the word that describes what's going on in the Republican-controlled House? Chaos.
Democratic Senate Leader Chuck Schumer saying the Senate won't agree to drastic temporary spending bill cuts. Republican Mitch McConnell says federal shutdowns are always bad for his party.
They never have produced a policy change, and they've always been a loser for Republicans.
McConnell also says that he cannot predict how this will end. Tennessee Congressman Andy Ogles said last week on WTN that a government shutdown will happen, but the question really is for how long. And over to some money news. Here's Daria Albinger.
Stocks tumbled as investors wait on the Fed's latest decision. The Dow gave up 107 points, the Nasdaq fell 32, and the S&P closed down 10. Instacart's shares surged in the grocery company's stock market debut. They jumped about 30% shortly after they started trading on the Nasdaq under the ticker symbol CART. The Federal Reserve's Open Markets Committee is huddling. It's expected to say that it will leave interest rates alone when it adjourns on Wednesday. The UAW preparing to expand its strike against Detroit's Big Three by Friday. Unless it sees progress in contract negotiations, the strike is now limited to 3 plants in Michigan, Ohio, and Missouri. Amazon says it'll hire 250,000 employees for the holidays for full and part-time positions across the country. The e-commerce giant calls it the company's largest annual investment in U.S. hourly wages, the average pay over $20 an hour.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Well, let's take a look at some economic news, which, there's a lot of stuff out there we need to talk about with regard to the economy and how it impacts your wallet and your life. So let's start out with this. This is pretty scary stuff. The national debt, I mean, honestly, of the United States reached a historic milestone, passing $33 trillion for the first time. Wow. We're just about ready to face a government showdown, a government shutdown over a lack of funding. But, I mean, as we head into that, it's worth noting that our national debt is $33 trillion and counting. The debt equals the amount of money borrowed by the federal government to cover operating expenses. It hit $33.04 trillion Monday, according to the U.S. Department of Treasury. A roughly 50% increase in federal spending has occurred between 2019 and 2021. Oh, that's the solo. We always pause for the solo.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Tax cuts, stimulus programs, decreased tax revenue as a result of widespread unemployment during the COVID-19 pandemic were factors in all of this. But, I mean, that's a whopping amount of money. House Republicans released their own bill to fund the government, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but apparently that's on hold right now. There's supposed to be a short-term CR, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Here is really what you need to be focused on if you are looking at, your pocketbook and how it will be impacted by the economy and things that are percolating right now. The almost uninterrupted rise in oil prices has pushed benchmark Brent crude close to $100 a barrel, posing a new challenge for central banks in their battle against inflation. Okay, so here's the thing. Remember when we went to 9.1% inflation? A lot of that, not all of it, but a great portion of that had to do with the high price of gasoline. I mean, we were knocking on the door of $5 a gallon gas even here in Middle Tennessee. And right now in L.A., a gallon of gas can cost you as much as $6 a gallon. And that's because the price of oil is going up again. So I looked at it a moment ago. I wrote it down. West Texas Intermediate is now at $91 a barrel, and Brent crude is at $94. And it's just going up every day. It's just going up. And when you have oil go up, it means that the price of gasoline and diesel will follow in time. And if the experts are correct, if we are truly headed toward $100 a barrel oil, then we're talking about a significant increase in the cost of gasoline and diesel. And that means you are going to pay a lot more at the pump, and you're going to pay a lot more at the grocery store because, well, it takes oil and gas and diesel and trains and trucks to get all the things that you buy at the grocery store to market. We're going through the whole thing we went through before. There's only one difference this time. The last time, when oil, got so expensive and the price of gasoline was so expensive, the Biden administration decided to tap into the strategic oil reserve, and they strategically released about half of it. And that kept the price of oil and gas. It drove the price of oil and gas down, but it was artificially being done because we were releasing oil and gas from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Well, he can't go back there again. I mean, if he does that, it would be putting our nation's security at risk because you've got to have that oil in there in case you need it. Oh, what if there were a national emergency? So he can't keep going back to the Strategic Oil Reserve. He's got no place to turn. The Russians and the Saudis have tightened up the oil supply, and we're doing a bunch of stupid stuff right now that doesn't make it any better going forward. So I'll tell you right now, get ready because with higher prices of oil and natural gas, you're going to see inflation go up. And what does that mean? If you've been following along as we talk about this each day, you know that means that they'll have to continue to increase the interest rates because that's all you got to fight inflation. So I think it's tomorrow we're supposed to hear what the Fed plans to do. And the speculation is that the Fed will pause on the interest rate hikes, but they can't pause for very long if they want to do something about the inflation that's going to go up when gas prices continue to rise. So, I mean, it's bad. It's a bad situation, and it's only going to get worse. I just want to tell you this because you need to plan. Your money, which may already be tight, is going to get tighter when the cost of gasoline goes up. And if you can't make it all on the money that you have, many people will turn to credit cards. You know, I mean, when you have to choose, I mean, this is a horrible thing to be where you have to choose between, am I going to put food on my table, or am I going to put a roof on my head, am I going to put clothes on my back, or am I going to put gas in the tank? If you can't make all that go into the money you have coming in because inflation and the cost is all going up, you have no other choice but to turn to your credit, and your credit is going to be higher because what? Interest rates are higher. It's a horrible situation. The economy is in a mess, and I don't think it's getting better. I mean, it got better for a while, but I don't think that this is going to this is sustainable. Here it is. The Federal Reserve expected to hold rates steady on Wednesday, but leave the door open for further increases. Okay. Listen, get ready. Gasoline prices have jumped to a national average of $3.88 a gallon in the U.S. That's up from $3.68 a year ago. Gas costs rose almost 11% from July to August alone, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. What, do you have the numbers, Chris, or can you look up the numbers? I knew you would be looking it up for me.
Yep.
Here in Tennessee?
Tennessee, we are at $3.43 per gallon on average.
Okay. So we're doing better than the national average.
Yep.
But I would say to you, my dear friends, get ready, because it is going up. There's just, I don't see any way around it. I wish I could give you better news about that, but you're going to pay probably through the end of the year, you're going to pay quite a bit more for gasoline as the price continues to go up and up and up and up. Meanwhile, those bright folks over at the Biden administration announced Monday that it has moved to shut down future oil and gas mining over thousands of acres in New Mexico over the next 50 years. The Bureau of Land Management, the BLM, which is a part of the Department of Interior, issued the Monday proposal to block new oil, gas, and mineral extraction activity on 4,000 acres of land in Sandoval County, New Mexico. The proposal motivated by the agency's desire to, they say, safeguard tribal cultures and recreational activity in the area, and would last 50 years if finalized. But, I mean, they just shut down a great swath of Alaska for future drilling. We don't need to be shutting down drilling as we face these problems. We need to, even though this oil would not be on the market for a few years, you've got to keep drilling. You've got to keep drilling. You've got to keep exploring. You got to keep land in the pipeline that can be explored for oil and natural gas. I don't understand the logic of the Biden administration, except it seems like they are bound and determined to do everything they can to kill off gas and oil and make your gasoline prices go higher, because they want EVs is what they want. We haven't talked much about the auto workers' strike, but according to the United Auto Workers, they did a limited strike, and most of those places are up and around Detroit and in the upper Midwest. But they're saying that they will open up other strike zones by Friday if there's no substantive progress. Sean Fain of the UAW said workers at more factories will join those who are now on the fifth day of a strike at 3 plants. Now, we are not at strike at Spring Hill. The GM plant there is not part of the strike, but if I'm reading this correctly, it may be in the days going ahead. The folks at Spring Hill have been told, the workers there have been told, it's a day-by-day decision. And it sounds like if the UAW does not feel as if the big three automakers have come forward with better proposals or more acceptable proposals, that they will widen the strike, and it may well be that by the end of the week we have a strike in our own area. Cross our fingers that doesn't happen, but it seems like it could. We're not going to keep waiting around forever while they drag this out, and we're not messing around, Fain said. Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis said they want to settle the strike, and they did not directly criticize the threat of escalation. I think they've laid up what seemed to me like a pretty good offer on the table. The strike is limited to about 13,000 workers at the Ford assembly plant in Wayne, Michigan, a GM factory in Wentzville, Missouri, and a Stellantis plant in Toledo, Ohio. However, the car makers warn there could be layoffs at other locations as the strike crimps the industry's supply chain. All right, keep an eye on it. United Workers, here's another story. United Workers could strike, drive up new and used car prices because of a parts shortage. Here we go again, parts shortage. The big three automakers try to have a 60-day supply of inventory, but they have 50 to 60 days worth of inventory, but if they continue to go into that inventory, then they may not have it for that much longer. All right, and then here's another thing that is at play in this whole strike. The auto workers are concerned about the move to electric vehicles. You know why? There aren't as many moving parts to an electric vehicle compared to an internal combustion engine. And that means that, like Tesla can assemble their cars a lot quicker and a lot faster and a lot less expensively than can the automakers who are out there still building these, gas-powered vehicles. And so there is a concern, and this is a sort of contention, a bone of contention between the Biden administration and the auto workers, is that the Biden administration continues to push for electric vehicles, and the auto workers say if we start building electric vehicles, we're going to lose a lot of jobs. So that is something to consider. Ford President, CEO Jim Farley even suggested last week ahead of the strike that his company couldn't pay workers what they wanted because of the cost of the EV transition. Ford announced this summer they expect to lose a staggering $4.5 billion on electric vehicles this year, raising the estimate from $3 billion earlier this year. The strike is initially aimed at 3 Detroit factories. As you know, the union began demanding a 40% pay raise over a 4-year contract, but later lowered it to 36%. Well, now we admit 40's a little much. We'll take a 36% pay raise. Well, who wouldn't? Union is seeking to seek raises to correspond to the cost of living. But honestly, there is a real bone of contention between the auto workers and Democrats over this idea of more electric vehicles, because the auto workers are afraid it means more electric vehicles mean fewer auto workers employed in this country. And they're right. 50 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. Busy bee when you need heat or cold AC. And actually this time of year, at night, you might want to turn on the heater for just a moment because it's getting down into the 40s and the 50s at least. And then you got it in the nice day, and you need a little air conditioner during the day when it sort of warms up. That's what you get this time of year. So if you have a problem with either one, why don't you call this number, 615-775-7833, and the folks at Busy Bee will buzz right over to your hive and get you up and running. You're not going to find a better value on HVAC and plumbing replacement systems if you should need that. And you should think about becoming a member of the Beehive Club. Starts for as little as $99, and what you get is 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at the beginning of heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing, and you get no overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. So for satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 775-7833. That's 615-775-7833. Online at busybeehvac.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I recently did a workshop talking about some of the missteps of the investing industry, some of the biggest mutual fund companies out there. You probably recognize these names: Fidelity, Vanguard, Raymond James, Edward Jones, actually using data and information from their own websites as I walk through this. Now, one of the things I was talking about is diversification and how investors could be in for a rude awakening at the amount of risk that they actually have in their portfolios, and they don't even realize it. Now, the example I like to use to help people understand why do these huge companies do this? I mean, these are big companies. And you go, well, why? Well, think about the diet industry. In the diet industry, you had things like this: fat-free this, fat-free that, fat-free that. And what happened is they did a study. They were looking at diabetes in children. And what they found was that when they went fat-free, they actually ended up with more diabetes rather than less, because what they substituted for fat was sugar. Now, what happens in the mutual fund industry, they tend to keep costs low by investing in very narrow areas of the market that are inexpensive to manage. So what happens is the investor ends up with more risk than they think that they've got. Now, why do they do that? Because you are actually attracted by low costs. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't use these big mutual fund companies. It just means that you have to be eyes wide open. As an investment firm, we help people sidestep these things because sometimes you have no choice. You have a 401k, you're dealing with these fund companies, and you can't go anywhere else. So what we do is we help you go around these landmines. To set up an initial 15-minute phone call, go to our website, paulwinkler.com, or you can just scan the QR code right here. We look forward to talking with you.
A government shutdown looming, and it seems inevitable. A 1-year-old Tennessee boy found safe after a child alert was put out, and a pregnant Tennessee mother also found safely. Plus, AI-generated videos and their safety, or lack thereof. Those stories and more coming up, 5 o'clock, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, in the next hour, we will get into the 2024 election and some new information that is just coming in. And, of course, it is a fan favorite, Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports at 5:25. If you haven't heard it, you don't want to miss it. Today, we're going to be talking about Deion Sanders' prime time as a coach. Who would have ever thunk that would happen? It's all straight ahead in the next hour of The Drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Five o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 81 degrees on Music Row. Complete weather forecast, latest traffic report. It's headed your way in 5 minutes. Some breaking news. Endangered child alert has ended. The 1-year-old boy from Nashville who is missing has been found safe in Fort Worth, Texas, with the mother's 17-year-old ex-boyfriend. That ex-boyfriend is now facing charges after the child was taken from the mother's apartment. And in the nation's capital, there's worry in the U.S. Senate that House Republicans will not make any budget deal in time to avoid a government shutdown. Andy Field has the latest from Washington.
Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer blasting House Republicans' temporary spending plan that he warns cuts money across the board.
Who in America wants to cut cancer research? Some of the House Republicans do.
Republican Senate leader Mitch McConnell urging a two-party solution.
I can't predict exactly how this ends.
Senator McConnell saying shutdowns have always been a loser for Republicans.
Right now in Tennessee, 22-year-old Alyssa Bowden of Madison, Tennessee, who was missing while 9 months pregnant, has also been found. And her boyfriend was missing with her as well. He's been found. Here's Channel 4's Danielle Ledbetter.
Family members called and told me police alerted them that Alyssa Bowden, TJ Schroeder, and their unborn baby were all located safe. And just moments ago, we learned they were found at an apartment complex in Gallatin. Now, they had been missing since mid-August and were last seen in Goodlettsville. Now, this is a positive change of events. I spent time with both families earlier today, and of course, they were hoping and just praying that this would be the outcome. And luckily for them both tonight, that is the outcome.
Bowden also has a 5-year-old son. Right now in Middle Tennessee, Fox 17 reports that the Williamson County School Board heard arguments from parents against pride flags being inside of classrooms last night. Parents against the flags said that there's no place for them in education, and other parents argued that not putting pride flags in schools is just, quote, downright mean. The item was not on the agenda, and no vote was taken on the matter. And when it comes to AI-generated videos, TikTok is hoping to make things more transparent. Jason Nathanson.
When someone uploads a video to TikTok and they used AI to make it, they'll soon be able to clearly label it as being made with AI. TikTok outlined the new ability Tuesday, saying it wants to support transparent and responsible content creation practices. And not only will users be able to stamp their own content as being AI made or assisted, but TikTok says it's also testing ways to label AI-generated content automatically. That would help showcase cool new technology, but also alert viewers if something is a deepfake. Earlier this year, TikTok introduced a policy requiring people to label AI-generated content.
And that's the latest news. Traffic and weather upcoming. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. 7 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock, hour number 3 of The Drive, where we bring you news and information you can use. We want to make sure that you got everything you need to be well informed as you go through your day-to-day activities. And, and I really love it when, you learn a little something and you take it home and you talk about it over the kitchen table or whatever where you're having dinner. I like that. You learn something, and you share it. What have we learned today?
Hey, honey, did you hear? Brian's going to have some puppies come Christmas time.
That's right. That's right. We are so excited about that. We're all about the puppies. Not so much about how you get there.
Yeah, I don't want to know anything about
No, you don't want to know. I'm getting a real education in animal husbandry with all of this. I promise.
Is there a ring and the ceremony involved in this husbandry?
No. In fact, the daddy is owned by somebody who lives in this area, and the daddy will just show up when the daddy is needed. I'm telling you, it is complicated. Because, you don't just do this the old-fashioned way when you're dealing with French bulldogs.
Mm-hmm.
You have to intervene. You have to help them along. And I'm telling you, there are blood tests, and, it just goes on and on and on and on. So, honestly, it got so... The details got so to the point where I just said to Cabana Wife, I said, just wait me when the puppies come. You handle this. I'll write the checks, and that's what we're doing. I don't want to know anymore. I don't want to know anymore. And what I do know troubles me greatly. By the way, a bit of breaking news. Hunter Biden will plead not guilty to federal gun charges. Not a real surprise here. This is really a fight over whether or not he shows up for the arraignment. The government says you show up. And his attorney, Abby Lowell, says, no, we don't need to show up. He's going to come in and say two words, I plead not guilty. So why does he have to come all the way from L.A.? Well, because he's not special. That's why. It's the way we do things. You show up in court. So they're requesting, however, that he do this by video conference. They don't want him showing up at court, and they don't want the picture. Too bad. I don't know how it's going to get worked out depending on how the judge rules, but seems like to me, already he's as he enters a not guilty plea, he's asking for special treatment, which is, sort of what a lot of us think he's gotten all along. Nothing but special treatment. So I hope they make him come in. Time for our 2024 update, because it's never too early to start talking about the next election. Got some good stuff here. Trump will not, we now know, attend the next Republican debate. And why in the world would he? Honestly, I'm going to pull up the numbers and just tell you why he will not, because he doesn't need to. If you look at the numbers that are being run up by Donald Trump, he is somewhere between 46 and 50 points ahead of his nearest rival. Like, okay, so why would you show up with the seven dwarfs? And can we say dwarf? I don't know if that's allowed anymore. Why would you show up with the other candidates and participate in that? You're only giving them a chance to throw rocks at you. So he's not going to do that, and he shouldn't. The former U.S. president plans to give a speech in Detroit at the same time as the debate to a crowd of union workers, skipping the second Republican presidential debate, an aide said yesterday. The primetime speech expected to be delivered to auto workers and other blue-collar union members. The speech comes as Trump has been harshly critical of President's electric vehicle policies and urged auto workers to back his candidacy. So he's not going to be there. He will go to Detroit on Trump Force One and give a speech to auto workers that are on strike right now. So there is that. For the rest of this 2024 update, well, for most of it anyway, I want us to play a little game here. I want us to imagine that we're going to sort of eavesdrop on the Democrats. I've read some stories here that it really amount to Democrats talking to Democrats, and I know you probably haven't read these stories. You don't have to, because I took the hit for you. And I'm telling you, on one side of the equation, the Republican side of the equation, you got somewhere between 57 and 62% of support for Donald Trump, and it seems that Republicans have sort of let it be known where they are on this matter, and they're enthusiastic about supporting the former President Donald Trump as he runs in his reelection bid. So it seems a little, over here, great enthusiasm, a lot of support for Donald Trump. On the other side of the equation, well, they say they're going to vote for him, but I don't believe them, and they're all wringing their hands. Oh, and there's the wailing and the gnashing of the teeth, and there's great worry, and there's consternation among the Democrats. And so I'm going to read you a couple of stories here and share with you some stuff, and you should understand that as I do this, these are Democrats talking to other Democrats, and we are sort of eavesdropping, gleefully eavesdropping, maybe a little. Yeah, we're gleeful. I start with a story in the Washington Post. I read it, so you don't have to. Interviews with more than 30 lawmakers, strategists, activists, and other Democrats show that uncertainty persists on the Democrat side of the equation. Few of the people that they talked to offered confident assessments that Biden's stubbornly low approval ratings would rebound before next year. And many conceded that one of the president's most significant challenges is one he has no control over, his age. Supporters and critics alike suggested that Biden's prospect may hinge on whether he can find a way to overcome a persistent and growing feeling in the electorate that his advanced age is his defining characteristic. Associated Press polls, 77% of Americans, including 69% of Democrats, thought Biden was too old to be effective for another 4-year term. When asked what word came to mind when they thought of Biden, more than a quarter of respondents mentioned age. Another 15% used words like slow or confused. How would you like to be a Democrat right now, understanding that a great number of Democrats describe their candidate as slow or confused?
Where am I? What's going to happen to me?
That's right. Everybody wants to know. Other polls are also flashing warning signs for Democrats. CNN poll found that Biden's approval rating was mired at 39%, with nearly 3/4 of respondents saying they were concerned about his age. The poll also found that most Democrats want the party to nominate a different presidential candidate. Polling has also suggested that Biden's support among non-white voters is slipping, that a growing number of voters prefer age limits for public service, and that America continues to feel unease about the economy. Those are not good things if you are the sitting president of the United States. So back to the Democrats who they talked to. Some Democrats who fully back Biden's reelection do not always discuss his bid in inspirational terms. They mention a quote from Senator Richard Blumenthal. At the same time, Biden's age has put an even more glaring spotlight on Harris, who would be a leading contender should Biden step aside and would replace him if he cannot complete a second term. Well, of course they're worried about her. One Democrat lawmaker, speaking on condition of anonymity to discuss a sensitive matter, raised the prospect that Biden could secure the nomination, then have to drop out for health reasons. The worst-case scenario is, quote, we get past the nominating process with President Biden as the nominee, and that he's no longer able to continue as the nominee. That's the nightmare scenario for Democrats. I'm telling you, what do you get from that? Well, you know what you get from that? You get the sense that they are so worried. Oh, they say they'll vote for him. You know, yeah, we'll vote for him, but not if they have a better option. They will go elsewhere, and they are looking for a better option. Most Democrats would love it if Biden were not the nominee, and that is not a good place to be, and that's why there's so much wringing of hands and anxiety over his potential nomination. I love Doug Schoen. He's a Democrat pollster, and I'm going to tell you that all the years when I was at Fox, when I was covering elections, I sat on the set a lot with Doug Schoen. And what I love about Doug Schoen is, though he is a Democrat pollster, he has always been one who will just give it to you straight from the shoulder. the good, the bad, the ugly. He won't pump a bunch of sunshine. He'll just tell you what the numbers show, and he's really a slave to the numbers. And he has written an editorial that makes sort of illustrates the point of how nervous and how bad things look for the Democrats as they head into this election season. The headline really says it all. An indictment filed, an impeachment begun, and Ignatius defects. Headwinds abound for Joe Biden. Just 2 months ago, the conventional wisdom was that Hunter Biden would receive a plea deal from the Justice Department that would have wiped away the tax and gun charges he was facing and end federal investigations into the first stun. This most likely meant there would be no additional charges against Hunter, allowing the story and the bad press surrounding it to fade. But that changed. With the breakdown of the plea bargain and the appointment of United States Attorney David Weiss as a special counsel, Hunter Biden, as you know, we just talked about it, has been indicted on 3 federal gun charges, and more indictments could be on the way. To the detriment of President Biden, this may create a problem in the minds of voters between the alleged criminal behavior of Biden's son and what they say that of former President Donald Trump. Again, remember, we're listening to Democrats talk to Democrats, so they're going to throw some of that stuff in. At the very least, it will guarantee that a major issue in the 2024 campaign will be questions of corruption and ethics within the American government. As many as 6 in 10 say that they have no trust in government. So let me go on. Beyond the increasingly serious legal issues facing Joe and Hunter Biden this week, the publication of a column by Washington Post writer David Ignatius calling on both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris not to run in 2024 suggests that major Democrat elites are turning against the former president. I'm sorry. Yes, if the drumbeat starts from the Democrat establishment against Joe Biden's performance and political position, there's much less reason to believe he will be reelected. We told you about this Ignatius column. David Ignatius is a very liberal pollster, and he actually wrote in the Washington Post that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden should not run for reelection. It's not in the interest of the party. That he did this sort of made it now possible for so many others to come out and say, at least anonymously, I don't think that it's a good idea if Joe Biden runs. To be sure, the Ignatius column is more than an isolated event or article. It effectively provides permission to Democrat Party elites to begin the process of questioning Joe Biden's candidacy and when his poll numbers continue to weaken despite the multiple indictments of the former president. A pillar of Democrat establishment, Ignatius articulated publicly in a prominent place what many donors and party leaders have been saying privately: the party would be better off in 2024 without Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on the ticket. I mean, honestly, again, compare and contrast. Republican side of the equation, great enthusiasm to renominate Donald Trump. The Democrat side of the equation, you're starting to see people come out in a very public way, some anonymously, to say he really shouldn't run. We need to find another action. And I'm telling you, if there's going to be another solution, they've got to find it pretty quick. Part of the problem for Donald Trump, part of the problem for Joe Biden is that he's perceived as being old, and he stumbles and he bumbles and he mumbles his way through every event. And a lot of people are saying, I don't know if he could do it again. And they look and they say, well, what would happen if he could not fulfill his duties? What if something were to happen to Joe Biden? We're not saying we want that to happen. I'm just saying, it could happen. He's old. He's really old. But if that were to happen right now, it would be Kamala Harris, and her numbers are worse than his. So that's why you're beginning to hear so many people say, is Kamala Harris the right person? We had all these sound bites yesterday, people questioning whether or not Kamala Harris. Nancy Pelosi won't say it. Hardly anybody else who was asked will say that Kamala Harris, they will not say that she's the right person. The only person who seems to be willing to stick his neck out, and it's sort of a surprise, is Gavin Newsom, who was asked about it this weekend on CNN.
You and Vice President Kamala Harris go way back.
Yep.
You say that you came up together in San Francisco, knew each other.
Before we were in politics.
Before you were in politics. I'm sure you saw that former Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, she heaped praise on Kamala Harris, but she declined to say whether or not she thought that the Vice President is the best person to be on the ticket with Joe Biden in 2024. Do you?
Of course she is. The Biden-Harris administration, masterclass in terms of performance. Bipartisan deals on infrastructure, bipartisan deals on guns and debt ceiling, on the CHIPS and Science
She's
Act.
the best choice.
I mean, by definition, if I think this administration the last 2.5 years has been one of the most outstanding administrations in the last few decades, and she's a member of that administration, she gets to lay and claim credit to a lot of that success. The answer is absolutely.
He's keeping his powder dry. He doesn't want to be insulting in case he's tapped. He wants to be appearing to be loyal. So I think that's why he's keeping his powder dry. 23 past the hour now, 5 o'clock. Hey, listen, if you have a desire to add gold or silver to your portfolio, listen up. I want to tell you about Nashville Gold & Coin. You're looking to buy real, actual, hold it in your hand, gold, silver, or bullion. Let me tell you, it's the place I do business, and it's the place I recommend. You'll get honest, friendly customer service and, incidentally, a real precious metals education. You'll learn a lot. They also specialize in the buying, selling, and appraising of coins, and you probably don't have any idea how much those old coins laying around the house might be worth. I brought in a few silver coins that I had in a shoebox, buried in my sock drawer. It turned out to be worth about $1,650. So whether you're in the market to purchase precious metals or you just want to find out what those coins in your closet might be worth, you need to schedule a one-on-one consultation today. That's the way they do business. One-on-one, you'll sit down, you'll learn a lot, and you'll probably walk away with some money if you got a lot of coins to trade in. Go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
January 6 testimonies, Hunter Biden news, and Californians upset about the homelessness in their state. I'll have those stories, 5:30, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Well, it's time now for, it's really a fan favorite. Everybody's very excited about this. It's become something that I look forward to each and every day. It's called Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
That's right. It's Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports. And now here, the host of our program, well, it's Mac Maury.
It's me. Hello.
Yeah, that's right. Hello. Well, listen, we wanted to spend some time today, talking about one thing that is just phenomenally interesting in the world of sports, and that is Deion Sanders as the coach of Colorado University Buffaloes. I mean, this has been something that, I saw this weekend. I was watching a little bit of college sports, and they took their shows. Everybody was taking their shows up to the big game between Colorado and what was it, TCU?
Colorado State.
That was Arizona State, right?
No, Colorado State.
Colorado State. Oh, that was the big cross-state rivalry, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge game, and they were able to win it. Colorado's now 3-0. This is the first time Deion Sanders has been a head coach of an FBS program, like a Power 5 conference school. He was the head coach at Jackson State last year, which is an HBCU. And he's brought in a lot of HBCU players, actually, to Colorado. But he's also brought in two of those players that he brought in are his sons. His Shiloh Sanders is the starting safety. And then the big headline hogger, Shedeur Sanders, is the quarterback who's going to be in the Heisman conversation. This guy, you're not just going to see him on Saturdays. He'll be on Sundays next year. Maybe not next year, but maybe the year after. He's going to be in the NFL just like his dad was. And like you said, Brian, it's taken over the sports world. I mean, he's got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He's got Michael Irvin.
Yeah.
He's got all these stars for a Week 3 game against Colorado State, just going over the sideline. They win in a double overtime, just mega good game. And last year, Colorado football won one game the whole season.
I know.
The whole year. And so he comes in, he brings in some recruits. Boom, they're 3-0 right off the bat. Now their schedule's going to get a little tougher, but I mean, this is just a really cool story, and especially because, I mean, Chris, Brian, you guys grew up and as adults and as kids just watching Deion Sanders be amazing on the football field.
Oh yeah,
on the baseball field. I mean, just he's incredible. And so now to see him do it with the headset on, it's all pretty cool.
Yeah, it's unusual, though, to have such a flamboyant coach. And the one thing you got to say about Deion Sanders, he's nothing if not flamboyant.
Well, and he's one of those polarizing sort of characters. There are a lot of people out there that really just don't like Deion Sanders, either never did when he was a player and don't now when he's a coach, because he is that flamboyant sort of, But I think it's great for the college game because I think he can relate to the college students. And I think if you see any of the videos of him actually coaching his players, he doesn't take any crap from his kids.
No,
he will tell them very quickly if they're out of line or doing something that he doesn't like. So I think he is a good coach, even though he does things a little differently than we're used to seeing done. But
and he was on 60 Minutes, and I've got some real quick audio before we go to news, Brian, about kind of him just talking real quickly about what makes him different. So here's Deion.
You're already publicly talking about Travis Hunter's Heisman chances. Who does that?
A coach that loves his kids, the coach that understands that's what those kids desire. And I'm supposed to do that. That's what we told them when they were coming and choosing to play for us. My kids that play for me, they didn't choose a university. They chose me.
And that's really it. And that's true. He's selling himself. He's like, listen, guys, football's great. Football's going to be the same sport wherever you go, but you can't find me anywhere else. And he's putting Colorado on the map. They play USC or Oregon State next weekend, then they'll play USC, two really, really good Pac-12 teams. So this is a fun story to keep track of on Saturdays. Anytime you see Colorado, make sure you tune in.
And lots of people have been thus far.
Yes, and lots of people have been.
That's right. Well, I think it's fascinating, and to see, you think, well, who would have imagined? I could never have imagined Deion Sanders as a coach.
Would not have thought it. Yeah.
But I mean, here it is, and it's entertaining as hell. I'll tell you for sure.
Sure is.
All right, Mac Maury, thank you very much. That's Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports. Now it's time for Mac Maury to put on his news hat. The news is next on Super Talk.
.532, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 81 degrees on Music Row. Got a complete weather forecast. Latest traffic report. It's headed your way in 5 minutes. A former U.S. Capitol Police chief said he did not have the power to call in extra help before the January 6th attack, and the current chief doesn't either. He testified on failures that day before House Committee. Andy Field.
Former U.S. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund ran the department during the January 6th attack and said he pleaded for help before and during the riot.
The fact that the chief of police, responsible for the entire legislative branch of government, was repeatedly denied assistance by the Pentagon is indefensible.
Sund also told a congressional committee that the FBI and President Trump's Homeland Security Department had information about a possible attack, but that he did not receive it.
And Ray Epps was charged with a misdemeanor today related to January 6th. He has been accused of being an FBI informant who ramped up those riots that day. In Tennessee, an endangered child alert has ended. There was a 1-year-old boy from Nashville who was missing and has now been found safe in Fort Worth, Texas, with the mother's 17-year-old ex-boyfriend, and that ex-boyfriend now facing charges after that child was taken from the mother's apartment. Hunter Biden news. President Biden's son, Hunter Biden, has notified the court that he plans on pleading not guilty to 3 federal gun charges against him. He's also asking for his initial court appearance to be held remotely. Hunter Biden was indicted last week on 3 charges relating to his purchase of a gun in 2018, including making a false statement on a federal form and possession of a firearm as a prohibited person. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Let me tell you about the Wellness Institute of Nashville. You need to write down this number. If you have pain in your arms, your leg, your neck, your back, a tingling in your extremities, these are all things that can be made better through some of the therapies they provide at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Here's the number, 615-246-5009. Starts with a phone call, and then you'll go in and meet with Dr. Kevin Mitchell or maybe Ashley Mitchell, and they will straighten, come up with a plan for you. Now, there's something else I want to talk about. Very important to Dr. Kevin Mitchell, a way to show your patriotism through the flying of our grand old flag. They are putting the American flag back into our cities and town with something called the Patriot Way Project, and already they're responsible for flying some 75 brand new flags. You can donate to this whole project at patriotwayproject.com, or just come by and visit them at the Space Age High-Tech facility there in Mount Juliet. They want you to know that when you visit their facility for spinal or knee treatments, that they are actually giving back to the community. So if you have a bulging or herniated disc, sciatica, tingling, or numbness, and the arms or legs, weakness, spinal stenosis, a whole host of things, well, then you go to the Wellness Institute of Nashville. And by the way, tell your friends and family and loved ones about the Patriot Way Project at patriotwayproject.com. 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com. It's 40 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, and so glad that you're with us here on this Tuesday. Beautiful fall day, and hope that you're enjoying the weather. And I really love this time of year. I mean, it is
Me
so
too.
nice.
Yeah.
You know, you get a little bit of warmth, but not too warm. Just, very pleasant in the middle of the day. And then in the evening, there's just a touch of crisp autumn air in the, to enjoy. And
Just
I
a
love it.
little nip.
Yeah, a little nip in the air. That's right. We talked a lot yesterday about this F-35 that went missing. And this is pretty shocking when you think about it. It took the Pentagon 28 hours to find the missing F-35. Now, it didn't really go that far. I mean, the range, I just read on this thing, is the range of the aircraft is about 1,367 miles on a full tank of gas. By the way, the top speed, 1,200 miles an hour. So we don't know how fast it was going. It cost $80 million a piece. This F-35 is one of our two most sophisticated aircraft. I mean, when you talk about stealth aircraft, you've got the F-35, but I think the better aircraft is the F-22. It really is sort of a superior aircraft, but very expensive, and there aren't many of them. So you got the F-22 and the F-35. Both are stealth, and basically, unless you're doing something known as squawking, if you're a pilot, that word means something to you. They'll say squawk on certain transponder frequency, and you're sending out a little radio beacon that lets the radar know where you are. It sort of registers with the system, and they say, okay, we see you. And most aircraft, if they don't squawk, you can still see them because the radar can see that there's a plane out there. But we're talking about aircraft that have the radar cross-section of a bird. So the radar really can't track them if they're not squawking. So you got two F-35s. They're flying in tandem, and then there's something that happens. And what has happened is, like, nobody knows exactly what happened, but for some reason, one of the pilots ejects from his plane, and it's still on autopilot when he ejects. The second aircraft returns to base, and so they know roughly where he ejected, and then they began to plot, well, if the aircraft was continuing to go in this direction, then we should fly that direction and see if we can find it. It took them 28 hours to find the wreckage. Well, although I'm gonna throw out a conspiracy theory here, I don't think it really took them 28 hours to find the wreckage. I think it took them 28 hours to let us know where they found the wreckage. Because I think that, when you're talking about stealth aircraft, what is the great concern? That somehow the high technology, the secrets of that aircraft could be, scooped up by somebody who just wants some kind of, souvenir of the thing. So I think they wanted to keep the location where it went down a secret until they got to go through there and scour and see if there was anything there that needed to be recovered that was of a top secret nature. That's just a guess on my part, but one way or the other, 28 hours to find it. They found it in a field next to a stand of trees, and what I've seen doesn't look like much wreckage. It just looks like a big burned spot in the middle of a field.
Yeah, it looks like a cleared area. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see any pieces.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I didn't see big pieces of the aircraft. So apparently it flew on in a direction and then apparently then nosed in. I don't know what caused it to nose in, but, it was only found about 85 miles north of the base. It's not known whether locals informed the military of the crash, which did not appear to have happened in a remote region. So I'm gonna speculate here. I think somebody said, we found your F-35. Where is it? It's in a field up here next to a stand of trees. Okay, we'll be right up there with a flatbed truck. Don't tell anybody. Whatever you do, don't tell anybody. And then they got up there and they sort of, had a chance to scour the area, pick up anything that was sensitive and get it out of there before they released information. I don't think it truly took them 28 hours. But on Monday, I mean, they were in panic mode. On Monday, Nancy Mace, who is a representative from South Carolina, Republican, said she'd been briefed on the search. She described the incident as very embarrassing. She said there were urgent questions which needed answering as to how one of the world's most sophisticated fighter jets could simply vanish. And guess what? They didn't have any answers, she told a local TV station. They don't know if the plane is in the air or under the water. They could not tell me the precise location of where the pilot ejected or where the pilot landed. We're talking about an $80 million jet. How does it just disappear? And how does the Pentagon ask for the public's help in finding it? It's just a huge embarrassment. Several hours later, it was confirmed the plane had been found, but questions remained. They were very mysterious. They say, well, the debris was found 2 hours northeast of Joint Base Charleston. Well, is that 2 hours as you drive it? Is that 2 hours as you fly it? At what speed were they? I mean, that's a very murky statement. Well, a couple hours north of Joint Base Charleston.
I just saw a new report that said it was 60 miles from where the pilot landed. That's where the plane was found.
Yeah, that'd be about 85 miles because he ejected shortly, I guess, after takeoff, about 15 or 20 miles out. So now the question is, well, what happened? Why did the guy have to eject the plane? What caused him to do that? And why was it still in autopilot mode when he did? I mean, you're in autopilot mode, you're thinking, well, I'm just cruising along here. Not much for the pilot to do except look around. And then something happened that caused the canopy to blow and for him to be ejected from the aircraft. And quite frankly, it's a mystery as to what's going on. I think that we're not, honestly, having dealt with the Pentagon on sensitive issues before over the years, I don't think we're getting exactly the straight story. I mean, I first of all, I think they're going to have to eventually tell us what the mishap was. One of the best theories I've heard was one that you put forward yesterday, Chris, that he may have dropped his phone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these pilots all carry their phones and they take snapshots of things that they see. It's all the time. And I don't think it's discouraged because sometimes the pictures they take with their cell phones end up being important. Like, when we go to intercept Russian aircraft in Alaska, they take pictures with their cell phones because that's what they have. So, I mean, I don't think anybody discourages them from carrying their phones, but your theory was that he dropped the phone, and then we know that apparently the eject handle is underneath the seat. You have to reach down and pull this handle, and that then causes the process for the canopy to blow and you to be ejected from the aircraft. So I think that's a pretty good theory.
Could be.
Yeah.
Here's another good point that's brought up by Chuck. Brought this up on the text line. Why didn't the other pilot follow the unmanned jet at this point after the pilot ejected to see where it was going and how far it would fly? Why did it just return to base?
Well, wouldn't he want to? To me, it seems like his most important thing would be to make sure the pilot was safe.
Well, that's true too. Yeah.
So he circled. Did he circle for a little while and then go back to base? I don't know. I mean, there are so many questions here and not a lot of answers. And part of it is because it's such a high-tech aircraft and it's so top secret. And some of the technology there is something that we would do anything to protect, because the last thing we want is for our adversaries to somehow get a hold of some of this amazing stealth technology. We are light years ahead of everybody else in that regard. So I don't know. More questions than answers on this thing. But there was a report in 2019, and I just throw this out here because it might have something to do with it. It might not. There was a concern that this F-35 could be hacked.
Ooh.
Now, how in the world you could hack an aircraft is beyond me. But apparently they say that there was concern about that. So maybe that's why they were acting hinky, as they would say.
Maybe it ejected him, and he didn't eject.
Well, what was the mishap? They really need to tell us what happened and why they call it a mishap, which is a very vague word. The military are pretty good about vague words. But what was the mishap that caused this whole thing to go south? Well, we'll continue to follow the story and bring you whatever we find as we go forward. 50 minutes now, past the hour of 5 o'clock. You know, the folks at Eurofix have a very different business philosophy. They staff all their locations with more staff than they actually need. That's just so they'll be ready when your emergency pops up out of nowhere. Hey, listen, have you ever noticed how hard it can be to get a right now appointment for vehicle repair? Some dealers, it could be more than a 2-week wait just to get an appointment, but not at Eurofix. Eurofix has been offering quality repairs that beat the dealer without dealer pricing since 1999, plus a 3-year nationwide warranty and the staff to fix your car now. If you're tired of waiting forever to get your car in the shop, call Eurofix. Aaron Stokes, the owner, says we will never be too busy for our customers. We are here to take their pain away now. Eurofix repairs all European cars, and Eurofix will say yes to speedy repairs when the others can't or won't. Family owned for 24 years. Call 844-EUROFIX or visit myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I recently did a workshop talking about some of the missteps of the investing industry, some of the biggest mutual fund companies out there. You probably recognize these names: Fidelity, Vanguard, Raymond James, Edward Jones, actually using data and information from their own websites as I walk through this. Now, one of the things I was talking about is diversification and how investors could be in for a rude awakening at the amount of risk that they actually have in their portfolios, and they don't even realize it. Now, the example I like to use to help people understand why do these huge companies do this? I mean, these are big companies. And you go, well, why? Well, think about the diet industry. In the diet industry, you had things like this: fat-free this, fat-free that, fat-free that. And what happened is they did a study. They were looking at diabetes in children. And what they found was that when they went fat-free, they actually ended up with more diabetes rather than less, because what they substituted for fat was sugar. Now, what happens in the mutual fund industry, they tend to keep costs low by investing in very narrow areas of the market that are inexpensive to manage. So what happens is the investor ends up with more risk than they think that they've got. Now, why do they do that? Because you are actually attracted by low costs. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't use these big mutual fund companies. It just means that you have to be eyes wide open. As an investment firm, we help people sidestep these things because sometimes you have no choice. You have a 401k, you're dealing with these fund companies, and you can't go anywhere else. So what we do is we help you go around these landmines. To set up an initial 15-minute phone call, go to our website, paulwinkler.com, or you can just scan the QR code right here. We look forward to talking with you.
Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing. The whole idea here is that you'll know how much it will cost before the care is actually delivered. I mean, that's a great concept, isn't it? Smart Care plans just start at $69 a month. And listen what you get. You get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. I said the entire year. And because we treat the whole family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. Now, you marry that with a high deductible insurance plan, and it could save you and your family a lot of money. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded waiting rooms. And they treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. And listen, we are at the peak of ragweed season. Seasonal allergies are definitely here. Grace Point offers allergy testing and treatment so you can get out and enjoy the great outdoors once again. Grace Point Healthcare on Main Street in Franklin, 599-6868 to schedule a visit.
It's 6 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 80 degrees in Nashville. Weather forecast, latest traffic report on the way. 5 minutes. An endangered child alert has ended. The 1-year-old boy from Nashville who is missing has been found safe in Fort Worth, Texas, with the mother's 17-year-old ex-boyfriend. That ex-boyfriend now facing charges after the child was taken from the mother's apartment. Now over to the nation's capital, there's worry in the U.S. Senate that House Republicans will not make any budget deal in time to avoid a government shutdown. Andy Field.
Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer blasting House Republicans' temporary spending plan that he warns cuts money across the board.
Who in America wants to cut cancer research? Some of the House Republicans do.
Republican Senate leader Mitch McConnell urging a two-party solution.
I can't predict exactly how this ends.
Senator McConnell saying shutdowns have always been a loser for Republicans.
Tennessee Representative Andy Ogles came on WTN and discussed the looming government shutdown and broke it down.
Look, 8% of a small piece of pie is not 8% of the whole pie. So it sounds like it's a big cut, by the way, but it's only a haircut.
He says it's really a question of how long the government is shut down. Right now in Middle Tennessee, Fox 17 reports that the Williamson County School Board heard arguments from parents against pride flags inside of classrooms last night. Parents against the flags said there's no place for them in education, and other parents argued not putting pride flags in schools would be, quote, downright mean. This item was not on the agenda, so no vote was taken on the matter. Right now in Nashville, Vanderbilt University not happy where it's ranked on a top 20 universities list.
Every year, U.S. News & World Report releases a list of the nation's top 20 universities. Vanderbilt's always mentioned with the nation's top schools, including Princeton, MIT, Yale, Harvard, and Brown, just to name a few. But Fox 17 says this year's rankings have riled Vanderbilt. The university challenging U.S. News & World Report, dropping Vanderbilt to 18th this year from 13th last year. Vanderbilt issued a 12-paragraph response, which in a nutshell says nothing's changed about it, but the magazine's methodology has changed to be incomplete and misleading. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And in parts of Vermont where tourists love to go leaf peeping, some of the locals are starting to push back against the flood of people. Sherry Preston.
It's the joke and the fear every fall. Leaf peepers flooding New England to see the fall foliage turn, and now some in Vermont are saying, leave us alone.
Okay, guys, this is insane.
Amy Robb says when the tourists show up,
it's like I can't even get to my home.
Michael Doughton lives there as well and blames social media.
All of a sudden, we just saw this massive explosion in the numbers of people coming.
One town, Pomfret, putting road closures into effect for tourists from September 23rd through October 15th.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hello, everybody. It's 7 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. Good evening. You're listening to The Drive. This is the fourth hour of our 4-hour extravaganza. We'll bring you some news and some information you can use as you make your way home. Hope that you have had a good day and that you plan a good evening with the fam. Whatever you got going on, just hang around as long as you can with us, and we'll keep the information coming down the pipeline for you. I was just looking, Chris, at this picture of John Fetterman, and he got told the other day that, you know what, we are not going to have a dress code anymore in the United States Senate for members. I mean, if you're like somebody who works on Capitol Hill, you still have to wear a coat and tie. But if you're a member of the Senate, then you don't have to put on a coat and tie if you want to come onto the floor of the Senate and cast your ballot. This was, I guess, apparently it was never officially written down, but it was just sort of the official rule that you don't come to the floor. It seems like to me pretty logical. You don't come to the floor of the United States Senate, dressed in gym shorts and a hoodie. But apparently now that will be allowed for John Fetterman. And I mean, who does he think he is? A radio talk show host or something? I mean, my goodness. I mean, I'm allowed to come to work in a hoodie, but you don't have to look at me. No, I mean, really, honestly, I remember, covering the United States Senate, and there was a time where the majority leader, at the time it was Bob Byrd, would actually allow reporters to come down to the floor, and he would have a little, meeting with them to sort of outline and take a few questions, what we call a gaggle. And you would actually go down to the floor of the Senate and meet there for just a moment, and then they would open up, and you'd had to scramble out of the way. But when they opened it, that stopped with Byrd. He loved to do that, and I would never have in a million years would never have thought of going down there in anything less than a coat and tie. I just wouldn't. Mm-hmm. And so it was something that, you as a reporter, you tried to honor the institution you were covering by respecting sort of the dress code. Whether it was written down or not, there were very few reporters who would show up there without a coat and tie on. But now, apparently, we're throwing all that to the wind for one individual because he feels apparently uncomfortable in a coat and tie. I don't understand.
Who doesn't feel uncomfortable in a coat and tie? I mean, that's just part of it.
Yeah, I don't know. This guy just get me started about Fetterman. But I mean, honestly, now a lot of people are mocking him. I noticed that Susan Collins said that she was going to wear a bikini on the floor.
I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, she's going to wear a bikini. She's going to show up in a bikini, and I say, Susan, please, no. There are many reasons why that would not be a particularly good idea. But where does it end?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just drives me a little crazy. But nonetheless, that guy.
I got to say too, John, the stash ain't working for you.
Yeah, he got rid of the beard.
Yeah, it's just creepy.
And he has just a stash across the top of his lip. But I don't know. There used to be a time, and I mean, it's sort of like I feel the same way about going to church. There was a time and a place where you didn't set foot in church without a coat and tie on. I mean, when I was a kid, you put on a coat and tie when you went to church. It was a moment, you dressed up. And now, I see, the people go to church in their shorts, and nobody says anything. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like there are certain places where you ought to dress respectably.
Well, and that's the other thing. If he's not going to wear a suit, he should at least wear clothes that look nice. But he looks like a slob.
He's a slob. There's no doubt about it. I mean, this guy, I don't know. Maybe it's part of the charm that got him elected by the good people of Pennsylvania. I don't know. But I'm telling you, this stands on my last nerve. But a lot of things do. I wanted to talk about this article. We're going to just hit a lot of different things in this last hour. This article, I brought it to you yesterday. Here's another version of it, that there's a poll out there that I think that if you care a great deal about politics, you need to pay attention to this poll. This is something that should set off alarm bells among both Democrats and Republicans. See, I feel in America right now we have people who, they're very, very, very strongly in support. Republicans are of Donald Trump. It seems that, I don't even know why the rest of the group stays in the race because, they would have to overcome, 40, 50 points to catch Donald Trump, and that just doesn't seem likely. Donald Trump is so far in the lead, and Republicans seem to be, sort of making their opinions known early in this whole process. We like Donald Trump. We're going to vote for Donald Trump. And DeSantis is within somewhere between 46 and 50 points behind him. Behind him. I mean, how do you make up 50 points? You just can't. And so, Republicans are very strong about Trump. And then the Democrats, I don't think they're all that strong about Biden. I think they say if it comes down to it, they'll vote for him, but they're not enthusiastic about it. In fact, a great number of them would love, 3/4 of Democrats would like to have anybody else but Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. And I don't know how they're going to resolve that. That's why I have said from the very beginning, I don't know how it's going to be resolved, but I would be surprised if Democrats actually do nominate Joe Biden at the end of the day. We'll see. I keep watching it to see, if I get some clue as to how they're going to resolve it, but I don't see how. But there are a great number of people in America who they're not Republicans and they're not Democrats, and they are just fed up with government in general. A pox on both of your houses. I don't want to vote for a Democrat and I don't want to vote for a Republican. If those are my only choices, I'll make them. But they really want something else. Listen to this. Shock poll. Nearly 40% of voters would back a third-party candidate if the matchup was between Biden and Trump, if it was a rematch. Democrat-Republican parties found themselves in respective predicaments, not usually seen, this is from redstate.com, by even one party in an election, let alone two. A third-party candidate question continues to be bandied about and analyzed 6 ways from Sunday. And as this aforementioned poll found, with valid reason, if the 2024 election proves to be a rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, many voters say they would vote for a third-party challenger. Somewhat shocking, it would be 42% of Democrats and 35% of Republicans. Are you ready for that again? 42% of Democrats and 35% of Republicans say they would vote for a third-party candidate if it was a viable candidate. While the media, political pundits, and supporters of various candidates are treating poll results, it looks like a lot of people are saying, I want another option. So here's more from that poll. 42% of Democrats, 35% of Republicans, and 37% of voters not affiliated with either major party are at least somewhat likely to vote for a third-party candidate if it's a Biden-Trump rematch. In such a rematch, Biden would get 80% of Democrat voters, 15% from Republicans, and 31% from unaffiliated voters. Trump would get 68% of the Republican votes, 14% of the Democrats, and 47% of unaffiliated voters. While overall dissatisfaction in some quarters, there is a significant gender gap, by the way, in the Biden-Trump rematch preferences. Men favor Trump by 7 points. Women favor Biden by 9 points. Voters 65 and older favor Trump over Biden by 9 points. And those under 40 favor Biden over Trump 44 to 39. There's a lot in this thing, but one of the things that it keeps coming back is that a lot of people would go for a third-party candidate. If you had 38% of the total electorate, and that's what it comes down to, in a 3-party race with a viable third-party candidate, a 38% would win. Really, when you have 3 candidates, the person who gets 34% wins the election. And if 38% say they would support a viable third-party candidate, what you have is a situation where it totally scrambles the math on this thing. So, look, I'm just throwing this out here because there's this no labels party, and it looks like they might throw Joe Manchin in as their candidate. Joe Manchin can't win in West Virginia, but he's seen as sort of a moderate who might have a chance in the no labels party. I don't know. I'm just saying, all I'm saying is when we talk about the coming election, we need to be aware of the possibility that there will be a viable third-party candidate, and that in this particular environment that we're in, a third-party candidate might actually catch on. Ross Perot got 19%. But if this poll is correct, a third-party candidate could get 38% and could walk away with it all. So we're in such uncharted territory with this election. Completely uncharted territory. I mean, it seems likely that Republicans will nominate Trump. I don't think they're going to nominate Biden, but they might. And there could be a third-party candidate that would actually pull down a fair amount of votes. Has anybody seen anything like this before? I can't think of anything where an election's been like this. You got one candidate that's got a bunch of court cases against him. You got another candidate who could well be impeached by the time we get to Election Day. And then you got the possibility of a viable third-party candidate, which we haven't had in this country since the Bull Moose Party. Teddy Roosevelt, for all those of you who study your history. All right, so anyway, I don't know, but I just think that it's going to be really hard to predict how this is all going to unfold. And this whole idea of a third-party thing could really scramble the math in a way that we have not anticipated. And anybody who tells you how they know how it's going to play out, they don't really have an idea because it hasn't yet revealed itself enough for us to know that. So we'll watch it. But 40%, nearly 40% would back a third-party candidate. I've been covering politics so long, and I've never seen anything quite like what we're facing right now. We are in completely uncharted territory. 20 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Let me tell you about the folks over at Genesis Diamonds. Something awesome is happening there this Friday through Sunday. You may have been hearing about it. It's really, really big. A 3-day designer engagement ring event showcasing the world's top 2 brands in bridal jewelry, Tacori and Verragio. Tacori from California, Verragio from New York, both here with their entire lines, including all new rings for this special event. You can explore hundreds of exquisite American-made designer rings. Plus, Genesis will have special incentives, 0-interest financing, and up to $5,000 in instant savings. In addition, Genesis has an expanded selection of GIA-certified diamonds for the 3-day event. All shapes, all sizes, rock-bottom prices on the rock you want. This is the best of the best. Every Tacori ring handcrafted by master artisans with exceptional quality. Every Verragio ring made by hand with unmatched attention to detail. There are brands these are brands the jewelers otherwise would like to have, but they can't. They're only offered at Genesis. And they'll all be on display this weekend. Don't miss the bridal jewelry event of the year, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills, and Cool Springs. It is 24 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. You're listening to The Drive, and I am Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. Oversight Committee intends to subpoena Hunter and James Biden bank records, not actually the individuals, as early as this week. The House Oversight Committee, according to Breitbart, will go after the president's son and the president's brother's bank records. The committee planned to subpoena the Biden since it launched the investigation. It did not issue subpoena sooner because the committee insisted on practicing restraint to show good faith. I mean, everybody, I understand, you get sort of frustrated by the continual, drip, 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 drip of this story. But, it is adding up. Water drips long enough, it'll fill up a tank. And so you have a situation where they are continuing to go after bank records, methodically going after all that stuff. I think that James Comer, the Republican congressman from Kentucky who serves on the Oversight Committee, and Jim Jordan are doing a masterful job of investigating this thing, but it takes time. You got to understand they're not getting a lot of help from the other side. And they went to this impeachment inquiry mode, which gives them the greater ability to go after documents and to compel testimony. And so that's what they're doing. They want to make sure before they call people in and ask them the really hard questions that they have all the facts. This is good lawyering is what it is. Don't try to rush the thing. Give people time to get all their facts together so that when they come in, you have everything you need to know. There are no unknown facts. So that's what's going on now. They're trying to get the bank records, and everybody's going to fight them, and it's going to take some time. But there's a lot of talk about, well, when are you going to call Hunter Biden in? Why aren't you calling him in right now? I mean, Matt Gaetz wants it happening yesterday, and the speaker and James Comer and Jim Jordan are correct. You bring that in too soon, and you will blow up the whole case. I want them to get the case right. There's the thing: do you want it to be quick, or do you want it to be correct? Well, you want it to be correct. The House will hold the first Biden impeachment inquiry next Thursday. That's a week from this Thursday. Not this coming Thursday, but the week after. House Republicans will hold their first impeachment inquiry hearing to investigate allegations of corruption and abuse of power. Will be the first since House Speaker Kevin McCarthy formalized an impeachment inquiry. McCarthy directed Comer and Jordan and the House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Jason Smith to lead the investigation. Fox News is reporting that the hearing won't necessarily tread on new ground, but will simply be okay, here's our first hearing. This is what we know so far. And I think that's important because, again, when you have the drip, drip, drip thing that happens every day, you forgot about the drip that happened 2 or 3 weeks ago. You sort of need to have somebody who comes in and says, all right, here's the 30,000-foot view of everything that we have learned so far, and here is where we're going next with the investigation. I think that's probably the right way to go about it. As for the timing of the overall inquiry, leaders would like to conclude this before the primary season. As you know, Biden faces accusations he was involved in a foreign business deal set up by his son, Hunter Biden, who allegedly promised his father would use public office to grant favors in exchange for payments to Hunter. The question is, did any of that money make its way back to Joe Biden? Was he basically bribed to take official actions when he was vice president under President Obama? That's the question. One of the things that they're going to be focusing on is trying to get 5,400 emails that we just learned about in which Biden used a pseudonym. They were fake accounts. They were burner accounts. And there are some 5,400 emails that need to be obtained from the National Archives, and then they need to be gone through and analyzed. So that's one of the big things that will happen in the next few days. Here again is the same thing. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said Republican House investigators handling the impeachment inquiry could subpoena his son, Hunter Biden, but are waiting for the right moment to take that step. Yes, absolutely correct. And McCarthy was pressed pretty hard about that. And he said, well, look, I know you TV people want this thing to move along, but we want to make sure that we have all of our facts in a row before we actually call people and start asking them the hard questions. It's going to be interesting to see how this thing plays out. But I guess the thing that I'm coming to right now is that, this thing has the potential. I mean, there's so much smoke here that there's got to be some fire. Have we found that one document, that one email? No. But we still have a lot of stuff to go through. But for anybody who suggests that there's not enough there to begin an impeachment inquiry, they simply have not been paying attention to the drip, 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 drip. 30 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Let me talk to you about the folks over at Rhino Shield. And maybe you're thinking about doing some painting around the house, paint the exterior of your home. Well, that'd be good as far as paint goes. I mean, paint's going to do what paint does. And, if you paint, you're going to have to wait a couple of years and you'll paint again because it cracks and it chips and it peels. But if you were to use some Rhino Shield on that house instead of paint, well, you'd have something that lasts a full 25 years, a full quarter century. You see, Rhino Shield is not paint, 10 times thicker than paint, infused with special 3M ingredients, billions of microspheres that allow the coating to expand and contract. And that's why they offer a 25-year warranty against cracking, chipping, and peeling. Clay Morris and the folks of Rhino Shield of Nashville have a great reputation. Amanda said, my home turned out beautifully. They showed up on time. The crew was professional. Joan says the work was outstanding. The quality was top of the line. My friend, the Garretts, have a home that's more than 100 years old, country farm home. And the folks at Rhino Shield came out, and they're so impressed, they're going to have them do a couple more projects. Sound like something you'd be interested in? Why don't you give Clay Morris a call? Here's the number, 615-474-1729. Learn more at rhinoshieldnashville.com. "37 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. Glad you're with us as we wrap up the last half hour, and, we'll then hand it over to Mark Levin, the great one, after the news. This local story broke, and, I had forgotten about this. There was a raid back in March into the TBI raided the offices of the district attorney here in Nashville. And there was a whole lot of stuff that was looked at. I mean, it had to do apparently with cameras, and were cameras being used in some way to perhaps listen in on conversations they should not have been listening in on. I think that's what it was about, as best we understood it at the time. Phil Williams over at Channel 5 has a sort of an update on that, and it's sort of eye-opening. From Channel 5's website, an unprecedented raid of the Nashville District Attorney's Office in March included a search of DA Glenn Funk's personal office, including his laptop, his briefcase, and other electronics, as TBI agents sought evidence of possible illegal wiretapping, according to newly unsealed court documents. The search warrant and inventory of what was seized has been sealed, but Davidson County Criminal Court Judge Jennifer Smith ordered the release of the documents Tuesday, that's today, in response to a motion filed by News Channel 5. According to the inventory, agents copied a laptop computer belonging to Funk, as well as hard drives found in the DA's office and conference room. That's on top of numerous computers, servers, hard drives, and other electronic devices that were listed on a 4-page inventory of items seized or searched during the raid. Man, that's a pretty invasive search right there, I'm telling you. Handwritten, typed documents, video, audio recordings, any and all documentation of security system installation, USB storage devices that could contain video surveillance of employees' movements and conversations within the office, any video and or audio recording of persons visiting the office, computer drives. I mean, boy, they went after a ton of stuff in the district attorney's office, and then we haven't heard much about it, have we? The raid of the DA's office followed a News Channel 5 investigation that had raised questions about the presence of microphone-equipped cameras capable of recording conversations of people who don't know someone is listening. Signs warned about video surveillance, but not audio surveillance, leading the state attorney general to open an investigation into whether the DA's office could be violating federal and state wiretapping laws. Two sources told News Channel 5 investigates that they have told investigators about the possible presence of microphones in areas that Funk had not publicly acknowledged. Funk has denied any wrongdoing, comparing the cameras in his office to Ring doorbell cameras that are commonly used in residential settings. That's an update on that story. I mean, that's one to watch. And again, I had completely forgotten. Remember, that was a big story back in March, and they were in there for hours and hours and hours. I mean, from, I think, early in the morning till late at night, going through the DA's office there. Wow. Yeah, let's keep an eye on that one for sure. Tonight, for the rest of our time together, in the short time that we have left, a series of fun stories. Okay? First of all, if you're a fan of the Wheel of Fortune, you know that this is Pat Sajak's last year. He's not good. He's going to finish up this year, and then he's done. One and done. And that guy, Ryan Seacrest, he's going to take over. Well, I don't.
I love how you say Seacrest.
Seacrest. Seacrest is going to take over, and the question is, well, would Vanna stay?
That's what I was thinking.
This is the burning question, I think, of our era. Was Vanna going to stay on the Wheel of Fortune after Pat Sajak left? The answer has been revealed today. Vanna White has extended her contract for 2 years. So she will continue to co-host the popular game show with Ryan Seacrest as Sajak departs in the fall of 2024.
There was speculation that Pat's daughter was going to take over for Vanna because she's done it a couple of times, I think, when Vanna's been off.
Yeah, Vanna had to take a few days off. I think there was an illness or something, and so Pat Sajak's daughter, very attractive young woman, she stepped in. But Sajak will take over. Seacrest will take over for Sajak in the fall of 2024. So, if you're a big fan of the Wheel of Fortune, well, then you're a big fan of Pat Sajak. You need to be watching because his time on that show is limited.
It will be interesting to see how Seacrest does things, like how he handles it. Because, Pat Sajak has got a certain way that he does it.
Lately, he's been sort of, horsey about stuff.
Yeah.
Is that a good word, horsey?
That's a pretty good word, yeah.
Yeah, he's been sort of, at times people have criticized him for being a little rough on the contestants. But I don't know. Well, Vanna White, she's going to be in there for a little bit longer. She's going to hang in there for a couple more years. I mean, why not? I mean, it's got to be one of the easiest jobs out there.
Oh, totally gravy. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're making big television money. So, why not make it as long as you possibly can? I love this story. I forgot about this story. I saw it earlier, and I want to bring it back. Imagine showing up, this is from Channel 4's website, at your hotel on vacation and quickly realizing that you're going to be put to work after being met by a lobby full of angry customers, a phone ringing off the hook, and no one to let you into your room after a long night and a 4-hour drive. That was the reality of 3 Georgia residents who showed up at the La Quinta Inn in Nashville on September 13th. So that was about 6 days ago. They found no employees at the front desk. And when you arrive at the hotel and there's no staff, so now you have a new job. The trio of friends, Kenzie Brooks, Aaron Howard, and Nurain Dobani, were in Nashville for an Arctic Monkeys concert. They arrived at the hotel at 5 a.m. and they found no one there except for one housekeeper who did not speak English. No one had been there since 4:30 a.m. A woman gets off the elevator screaming at us and screaming at behind the counter that $600 had been taken off her card. Police were called. The woman was asked to calm down, and the premises was canvassed for Wyndham Hotel employees, but there were none.
Wow.
There was nobody there. So Brooks, Howard, and Dobani asked the officer, could they just check themselves in? He said, I'm leaving. Do whatever you want to do. So they did. They took over. The group said they started answering phone calls from customers who said they had unauthorized transactions pulled through their accounts. The phones are ringing, and it just got insane. More and more customers are missing money. We're like, well, we're customers. We can't look in the system for you. They did not want to hear that. They wanted to speak with one supervisor. I told them there was no supervisor, but I told them my supervisor was Kenzie, and they didn't like that either. It was an S show.
Wow.
About 6:10 a.m., hungry, angry guests started showing up in the lobby for breakfast. There was no breakfast. Howard and Brooks have worked in the service industry, so they found the master key to the kitchen, and they brought out yogurt and biscuits and waffles, and then luckily, an employee of the Holiday Inn Hotel, which is also run by Wyndham, arrived and started to take over. But, I mean, these 3 people walk in and they basically just ran the hotel as if it was their own for about 3 hours.
It's nuts. It's like someone wrote this, like this is a Hollywood script. That's not real. That doesn't really happen. This is a comedy.
But apparently not. Listen to what the Wyndham Hotel people said.
Uh-oh.
This is an unfortunate and unexpected situation which in no way reflects our brand values or a great experience our franchisees strive to deliver. Following conversations with the hotel's management team, this location is an independently owned and operated franchise, they were quick to point out. It's our understanding the incident occurred due to a staff member prematurely leaving an overnight shift in the early hours of the morning and not notifying management. Once discovered, arrangements were immediately made to bring in additional staff. Hotel management has advised us the staff members in question are no longer with the hotel and at the time are working to address and make right any concerns from impacted guests, including the 3 individuals at the center of the story.
I heard that. I don't know if this is
really
true.
Happened.
But
Yeah.
I heard that that those 3 people got suites at the Holiday Inn. I guess it was one of the sister hotels. They were given free suites
because they helped out
for helping out. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's at least a happy ending for them.
Yeah,
but that's just
right.
nuts. I'm assuming this employee thought, oh, it's the middle of the night. No one's ever going to know if I'm here or not, so I'm just going to bail.
Yeah, I don't know, but that person no longer works there. I can tell you that for sure.
Good.
And then the story about a bride. She left her own wedding after her husband, during the ceremony where you feed each other cake, he smashed cake into her face. And she said, I told him not to do it.
Uh-oh.
I told him if he did it that it was going to be over for us, and he did it anyway.
Well, he's really done it this time.
She said that she knew that her husband found cake smashing videos funny, and she asked him not to do that because she's not fond of the tradition. He said her family does the cake smashing thing, And at the age of 17, she got a cut on her forehead when her mother shoved her birthday cake in her face.
Wow.
A cake decoration caused the cut. I told him if he ever did anything like that to me, I'd leave. He started laughing, but I was being for real. The bride wrote that she felt that her wedding day had gone perfectly, but was ruined when the husband scooped up a large chunk of wedding cake and smashed it onto her face. He claims she left the venue right away, despite her husband's and family's attempts to get her to stay. This was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives, and he embarrassed me in front of everyone for some prank that he knew I hated. Not a good start, I would say. Not only that, it ruined a $500 cake. He ruined my makeup, my hair, and the top of my dress because cake got all over it. Reddit users ask if the departure was an overreaction, but many think she was right. What do you think? Was she right or an overreaction?
I mean, if they had a discussion about it, which she says they did beforehand, and she said, do not do it, and he did it anyway, maybe. But she also made it worse by storming out. You know, if you want to give him the what for at the, in the honeymoon suite later that night, then fine, go ahead. But don't draw more attention to it by storming out of your own wedding. That was kind of childish, I think.
Yeah. Did you shove any cake?
We did that. We were gentle about it. We did the kind of the little dollop on the nose sort of thing. We didn't go overboard with it. Yeah.
Yes, no, and no.
Got it.
It's 50 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Let's talk about USS when it comes to waterproofing, or if you have some kind of foundation issue with your home, you want to call the folks at USS. In fact, it's the only number you want to call. And let me give you the number, 615-488-7855. Now, they're going to come out to your house. They're going to take a look at what you got going on, and they're going to give you their best advice. They're not out to sell you anything that you don't need. They're just out to fix your problem. So if you decide to go forward with their idea and their recommendation, you won't pay a penny until the job is done and you are completely satisfied. Now, they do great work, 25,000 satisfied residential customers. But don't take my word for it. Listen to what some people actually said. These are people who had business with USS. Best crew we ever had to do work on our house. Best I've ever seen. Very professional. They did an excellent job. That's Jerry in Hermitage. Jeffrey wrote, the service was A+++, and the installation crew was incredibly professional. Excellent experience. The entire crew was professional and knowledgeable about the services. Put me at ease with the whole process. That's right. You want to call the folks at USS, where they guarantee their best. Serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at USSTN.com. Or again, that number, 615-488-7855.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I recently did a workshop talking about some of the missteps of the investing industry, some of the biggest mutual fund companies out there. You probably recognize these names: Fidelity, Vanguard, Raymond James, Edward Jones, actually using data and information from their own websites as I walk through this. Now, one of the things I was talking about is diversification and how investors could be in for a rude awakening at the amount of risk that they actually have in their portfolios, and they don't even realize it. Now, the example I like to use to help people understand why do these huge companies do this? I mean, these are big companies. And you go, well, why? Well, think about the diet industry. In the diet industry, you had things like this: fat-free this, fat-free that, fat-free that. And what happened is they did a study. They were looking at diabetes in children. And what they found was that when they went fat-free, they actually ended up with more diabetes rather than less, because what they substituted for fat was sugar. Now, what happens in the mutual fund industry, they tend to keep costs low by investing in very narrow areas of the market that are inexpensive to manage. So what happens is the investor ends up with more risk than they think that they've got. Now, why do they do that? Because you are actually attracted by low costs. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't use these big mutual fund companies It just means that you have to be eyes wide open. As an investment firm, we help people sidestep these things because sometimes you have no choice. You have a 401k, you're dealing with these fund companies, and you can't go anywhere else. So what we do is we help you go around these landmines. To set up an initial 15-minute phone call, go to our website, paulwinkler.com, or you can just scan the QR code right here. We look forward to talking with you.